Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have guests C. Von Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie. C. Von Hassett has written an excellent book I've been reading. I'm almost finished with it. It's called Entering the Mind. We're talking about Dzogchen Tibetan meditations. We're going deep into the mind. That's the ultimate exploration, in my opinion. We can explore all the weird, unusual topics on the show, and I love it. But the most fascinating to me is, what is consciousness? What is your consciousness? What is your awareness? Who are you deep inside, the higher self? All these deep questions by Jack Handy, right? No, we want to enter deep in the mind. And I have somebody who's experimented with meditations for over the years and gotten off of it. I'm trying to get back into it. And I really, right now, this book has been excellent for me in my life. Entering the Mind by C. Von Hassett, because I've been trying to get back into meditation, and he really, really gets down to some of the brass tacks of this certain form of meditation called Dzogchen, about being aware of your own awareness, your innate self. I find this topic very interesting. Plus, their life experiences between him and his wife, Rachel Reid Wilkie, and her experiences also practicing Dzogchen we're going to get into. And we'll have them for at least an hour, maybe longer. We'll see. We'll see how long we go with the show tonight. And we have a lot of weird in the World Wide Web weird to get to, of course, as always. So we'll open up the phone lines later in the show. A lot to get to, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guests, C. Von Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie, will be joining us after the World Wide Web of Weird, after our first commercial break. Joining me, as always, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How you doing tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, thank you.
Glad to have you back on the show as well. And, we're going to be talking a lot about entering deep into the mind tonight. I know, Jamie, you do meditation and try to, like me, try to get back into it. And I highly recommend this book, Jamie. You'll hear it tonight. I think a lot of guests are going to want to, or a lot of listeners are going to want to pick up this book after hearing our guest tonight.
Meditation is a big part of my nightly routine, and I definitely want to check this book out.
Used to be part of my nightly routine. Used to be before kids. Now it's part of my work break routine. I go on my break at work, and that's when I get my 20 minutes of Zen or 30 minutes of Zen. Joining me as always, too, on Sunday nights, and usually also him and Jamie on Wednesday nights, on Weird Wednesday, is Rob Autry himself from St. Augustine, Florida. How you doing tonight, Rob? You're muted. That's how you're doing.
I thought I hit that button. My voice is sort of muted anyways. But hey, you know me. If we do meditation on the show, I'm going to fall asleep, so...
Yeah, no, we won't. No live meditations on the show tonight.
Okay. All right.
We've had some guests propose that. I don't think I could even get close to. I've tried. We had guests do we're gonna do a guided meditation. Like I try, but my mind is so much on this show. I'll be honest. I'm guided slightly. My mind's like, what's going on with the show? Yeah, we got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web Weird, I think we should start out with the fact that we haven't been blown into a parallel universe before, have we? Or blown apart, or whatever doomsday things people were wondering about with Large Hadron Collider that has resumed its hunt for dark matter. Yes, I saw a lot of people. I actually talked about this months ago about them resuming, and then I forgot all about it. And then last Sunday, people were mentioning, what about tomorrow, the Large Hadron Collider? Is the world going to end? Are we going to get shot in a parallel universe? I had forgotten all about it until you guys reminded me on the show last Sunday. But no, I think we're safe and sound. Maybe we are in a parallel universe. Things do feel weird. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup Radio Network, we are a webcast. We do stream out live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, but I will narrate as best as possible. So yes, the Large Hadron Collider, I always butcher it, resumes hunt for dark matter, having previously confirmed the existence of the elusive Higgs boson particle. The Large Hadron Collider, I always butcher that, sorry, is situated near Geneva, Switzerland. It's finally back in action again this week following a series of upgrades enabling it to run at even higher powerful levels than even before. This one goes up to 11. That's what I
11.
All right. Now capable of smashing protons together at energy levels up to 13.6 trillion electron volts. 16 trillion gigawatts. No. The enormous particle accelerator is once again on the hunt for new types of particles. One of its primary goals is to find evidence of dark matter, a mysterious form of matter which, despite making up a large percentage of the mass of the universe, has never been directly observed. We will measure the strengths of the Higgs boson interactions with matter and force particles to unprecedented precision, and we will further our search for the Higgs boson decay to dark matter particles, as well as search for additional Higgs bosons, said Adrius Hosecker, spokesperson for the facility's Atlas collaboration. Now, I saw people posting all kinds of things about this right before it, happened. I had one friend go, "What's your thoughts?" And I just put, "Science will do what science does without any thought of consequence." And that's just the plain truth. I love science. I love discovery. I love this. But they will do whatever. They will blow something up to see what happens. And if they was going to blow up the universe, they would, they might still try it. And you feel a little bit unnerved and uncomfortable when, a couple years ago, I think I showed on this show them doing a fake human sacrifice right on the front lawn of their institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Remember that? That makes you a little nervous about them, potentially blowing up the universe or something like that when they're doing stuff like that. I still don't know what that's about. And if you go search for it in YouTube, you will find only foreign videos that cover it in other languages. Like all the English versions that covered that, I could not find. Like they taken them down or something. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they did it right before this.
We were going to do Sam that lives here and me, we're going to do a ghost box session right when they turned on the collider. Oh, I didn't make it back in time, but she really wanted to do it just to see if there would have been any.
That's really brilliant.
Yeah.
See what the spirits have to say. They're just going, we're being scrambled.
Exactly. No. My brain.
I don't know. But like I said, I think there's definitely a reason for concern. They over in Switzerland there when they do that human fake sacrifice. I don't know if that, I remember reading the article on it that was put on by people that worked there. So that does make you a bit concerned.
Well, there is that, big god, Shiva god.
Yeah, Shiva the Destroyer. Let's put that right on our front lawn. That'll make everybody feel so much better.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on. All right. So the next up, this was big news. I didn't know what to start off. There was a lot of big news this week in the World Wide Web of Weird. Is of course the remaining Georgia. Well, first off, the Georgia Guidestones. Somebody blew them up. Blew up one. Pretty much blew it. They had to bulldoze the whole thing. I got this from Tim Binnell from Coast to Coast. Citing a safety concern, authorities demolished the remaining Georgia Guidestones following Wednesday's pre-dawn explosion that destroyed one of the monument's pillars, and they are now on the hunt for the bombers behind the blast. Shocking attack of the controversial piece, which was unveiled in 1980, features 10 guiding principles for humanity, sparked headlines around the world, with many wondering what become of the remaining giant slab, as well what we could have committed to who committed the dastardly deed. The first point of inquiry was answered late Wednesday afternoon when, as seen in the video, well, they have a video here, workers commenced demolishing the remnants of the monument because of structural integrity. They don't want people walking up there and the thing just going, and you got a flat person under it. As for the search of the criminal that did this, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation released 2 pieces of security footage from the site which show the monument when the blast occurred and a glimpse of a car leaving the scene shortly after the explosion. While the GBI is soliciting leads from the public, one presumes that the vehicle seen at the scene will likely eventually lead to a suspect. Should they be brought to justice, a local district attorney explained that the individual responsible for the bombing could face a staggering mandatory minimum sentence of 20 years in prison for destroying a public building with an explosive. The demise of the Georgia Guidestone led to cheers in some corners of the conspiracy theory community. Really? With many celebrating the downfall of the monument, which has been interpreted as a proverbial call to action for the New World Order. Meanwhile, residents of the area are no doubt mourning the loss of the unique roadside attraction that drew countless people to the community of Elberton over the last 4 decades. To that end, there has already been rumblings that the monument may be rebuilt, though time will tell if that ambitious idea will come to fruition. I don't know what to feel about it. I found it interesting, its whole placement there, and it does feel like a guide to the New World Order or depopulation when it says the world's population must be maintained at, 500 million? We're at 7 billion now. That'd be a lot of people to get rid of. Bit unsettling. And why it went up in the 1980s, you could only think because of the Cold War and the fear that we're going to blow ourselves to sky hell, and we needed something left behind to tell the survivors how to lead their guiding principles. I don't know who put it up. They said it was R.L. Christian or something like that. It was a guy who put the money forth or something like that, mysterious. I don't know. I saw a lot of people cheering it on. I don't cheer on bombing anything. I'm nonviolent and non-bombing. I thank you. I think a little too far there for whoever did it. I get your feelings and sentiment about the New World Order and all that, but let's not bomb stuff. Let's just not go there. Maybe, I'm not, no vandalism. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's
peaceful protesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little, somebody a little off the rocker probably did it, but we'll see. We'll find out. They will get caught probably. If your car was caught on video doing it and there's surveillance cameras there, you're screwed. They will find you. Welcome to welcome to your Orwellian, surveillance state right there, buddy. There's, Okay, let's move on.
There was a satellite. There was something watching.
Yeah, well, they had security cameras and all that stuff up there. I mean, they had to figure some crazy fool would come after it at some point. So, it's weird times we're living in. Speaking of, British engineer William Shachati, if I say that right, S-A-C-H-I-T-I, Shachati, has been looking for a way to restore a radar station to hunt for UFOs. Some unexplained mysteries. What do you do if you have £1 billion and interest in UFO phenomenon? You convert an old Royal Air Force air defense radar station to a UFO detector, of course. I like this guy. I wish I could pronounce his name right. Sashidi? I don't know how to say his last. I don't know how to say his last name. Has been living and working in such a facility for several months. Recently reached out to Reddit to ask for advice on how to get the AMES Type 84 radar unit operating again. Measuring 60 feet across and standing at the height of 25 feet, the enormous facility was used during the Cold War to detect signs of nuclear launches. This is his post. Help! I want to bring this back to life, he wrote on Reddit. When asked about why he purchased the facility, he replied, because I convinced myself it may be good to attempt to find UFOs. While he later admitted that this response had been somewhat tongue-in-cheek, he has since stated that he would be willing to use it to find UFOs if it meant giving the Age facility a new purpose. There's obviously the UFO hunters, he said. It's not for me to decide what the best use is for the modern world is for it. So long as it doesn't harm and it's not intrusive, I got the tech. Let's give it a life. I like this billionaire. You know, that to me, if I had $1 billion, yeah, I might be interested in something like that. Of course, I wouldn't have the tech savvy. I'd be on Reddit too. As how do you make this thing work? I just spent $1 billion. I'm sure you didn't spend that much for it.
Well, about $1 billion, that'd be dangerous.
Yeah, it would be dangerous. I'd probably be dead. Yeah. They'd doff me. But you know, I like these guys that they have this money and they're going to go look for UFOs, like Bigelow. You know, like they and Bigelow's looking in the afterlife. I'm like, yes, you're doing something with it besides, you know, buying a Ferrari. Yeah. You know, you're looking to do something for mankind. Good for you. I know everybody wants to rail on the billionaires. You know, I'm sure he's going to get tweets about, well, you could have spent that money and given it out to the poor people. Yeah. They'd still be poor. He doesn't have that much money. All right. But maybe he could find aliens. All right, let's move on. All right, what do we got next here? Oh, related to that, maybe the radar isn't going to help him find it, because this one I found interesting is from Unexplained Mysteries as well. Of course, it's a shorter article. The original article was from Science News, which I have up here. But Unexplained Mysteries, like I said, shorter article. Aliens could be sending quantum messages, study claims. For decades, efforts to scour the heavens for signs of intelligent alien communications have focused on picking up traditional radio signals. However, it's actually far more likely that an extraterrestrial civilization sufficiently advanced to be capable of traveling between the stars will have developed methods of communication that are far more practical over such enormous distances. Even communicating with our own space probes in orbit around the planets within our solar system can be a long-winded process, with messages taking minutes or even hours to travel back and forth. Sending a message between two solar systems would be exponentially worse, even a single message taking a year or decades to reach a closest star system. One theoretical way around this would be to find a way to send messages via quantum entanglement, a phenomenon in which the state of one particle in an entangled pair can be changed instantly over a distance. With such communications yet to be achieved on Earth... whoa, what was that? I don't know, somebody audio came in there. I lost my place. Let's see, where was I? It's not unreasonable to imagine that an alien civilization might be able to master it, or perhaps some variation of it. Another possibility would be use quantum particles to send transformations, a form of quantum communication that is currently subject to experimentation on Earth in hope of creating ultra-secure networks. What am I hearing? Oh, is that you, Rob?
Is it echoing or something now?
Well, it was, you sound a little bit like tinny, but it was like I heard a voice come in a minute ago, and there was noise in there. I don't know.
Yeah, my headphones just quit working for some reason.
Oh, okay. It's your external mic picking up. It's all right. If true, then we actually have the way to pick up such communications would be potentially privy to an entire intergalactic network of messages from all corners of the universe. Like I've said on this show, you know, with SETI and them trying to like pick up signals of aliens and stuff, they're not going to use radio signals. We all know this. I mean, in Star Trek, they're not. I don't know. In Star Trek, they do use like beacons to like transmit stuff, but they're not using radio signals. They're using something quantum-like or whatever. There's no way. I would love for them to tap into. So, I'm a big fan of Rick and Morty, and they have he has his parallel universe TV set up that he can do. You can look at shows from parallel universes, but he also has like the intergalactic TV. You can look at shows from other planets. It would be awesome. That's a cable I'd sign up for. All right, let's move on. All right, this one I've seen a lot of people in the big community. This is just the overwhelming story in the Bigfoot community right now. YouTuber Coyote Peterson announces Bigfoot skull discovery. And I have two articles here. I'm not going to read all of them. That's the second one. I have one from or maybe that's the first one. I got one from Unexplained Mysteries, and the other one is I think the Science article here, kind of dismissing this as a hoax. I don't know Coyote Peterson. I'd love to talk to him, but he's getting criticism for sure for this. The wildlife presenter claims that he has discovered a large skull of an unknown primate in Canada. Known for his enthusiastic presenting style and entertaining wildlife videos, Peterson isn't typically known for posting content or making claims about cryptozoological creatures. In a notice posted on his Facebook page around 11 hours ago, however, he revealed that he discovered the large skull of an unknown primate in British Columbia and even has pictures to prove it. Leaking his pics before they are taken down and before government tries to seize our footage, he wrote, found a large primate skull in British Columbia, filmed it, cut the footage, releasing on Brave and Wilderness this weekend. Have kept this secret for several weeks. Yes, I have the skull, smuggled it through customs and TSA, and is currently in a secure location waiting primatologist review. You broke some laws, buddy. Be careful. Yeah. Skull was found partially buried under a ground in deep back forest ravine after a massive storm in Pac Northwest where clearly a bunch of trees and earth were disturbed. I'm sure these pics will be taken down as we probably the video by our government or state park officials, but the skull is safe. Reactions to the discovery have been somewhat mixed. However, with some arguing that it is the skull of an existing primate, that the whole thing is a hoax to drum up views for his channel. Whatever the case, we should know more when the video is posted up this weekend. I haven't seen the video yet. There should be is there 2 pictures I have in there or just the one? I just have the one. That's right. There's pictures they have on the Unexplained Mysteries here from his post. Yeah, there's that. That's the actual of it in the mud. There's more pictures of it. Now, the other article, I'm not going to read it. Don't have time and run out from, what is it, Live Science? Yeah, livescience.com. I read it. And one primatologist is saying he can look at that and know that that is a recast. It looks exactly like a recast you can buy on eBay or online, whatever, of a primate skull, that it's fake. I don't know. I'm not a primatologist, and there's always the speculation that, that they try to cover these things up and hide it. This guy wasn't, I guess, into Bigfoot so much before. I'm not familiar with Coyote Peterson. I saw a meme posted that Bigfoot believers like, you're a savior or something like that because he found something. And everybody asks, where's the body? Where do you find the body? It'd be interesting if this is real. This skull is legit. I hope it's not a hoax. I hope somebody doesn't try to hoax this stuff. I'm not saying maybe he could have got hoaxed. Somebody left it there. Maybe it is real. I don't know. But I don't think it's good to smuggle it out of the country, not to go through official channels. I understand the reasoning because you're afraid that there'll be a big cover-up, you'll never see the skull again. That's happened. That's happened. There's plenty of people claim they've found evidence of Bigfoot. They went to the universities or they tried to go through the official routes, and it all gets just lost. No analysis. So I can get hit the struggle. I don't know what you should do in that situation if you find a Bigfoot skull. If it's legit, more power to him, and I hope he can get it proven and debunk the skeptics on their debunks. I don't know. I'm not a primatologist. I can tell you if that's real or not. It looks dirty. It looks like it's there, but it all could be staged. I don't know. But it's definitely got the Bigfoot community going up in arms. I believe in Bigfoot. I believe the Pattinson-Gimlin film is probably the best credible evidence out there we have. And if there's been any other credible evidence, maybe it's been hidden, and there's a reason why he has to go under these, sneak a skull out of the country and all that. But he could get in big trouble. There's laws against this, doing this. I don't know. It's pointed out by these other on Live Science by the primatologists and stuff, and people that are anthropologists and that. They're like, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. I don't know. Good, more power to him, though, if it's real. All right, let's move on before I run out of time here, because I'm going to. I got 2 last articles, kind of related, and I found it funny, and I'm not going to read them all because I'm going to run out of time. And I'll get your, I'd love to see what your comments are on this. The last 2 articles I saw pop online around the same time, 2 different sources, and it's all about AI, which a lot of stuff about AI recently, right? We've been having a lot of stuff about AI lately. This first one from, what's this, stealthoptional.com. Google AI solves how to split humanity's wealth, but no one cares. I care, but maybe not in the way you think. While most people are wary about AI's making decisions, a recent study from Google's AI showed that the technology can be beneficial. In the study, the AI was tasked with solving wealth inequality, and it might be better at distributing wealth than actual humans. The current social class system has always been a problem, but we haven't seen much progress in making that better. If this Google AI can really solve the problem, maybe humans should listen to the AI more. Researchers deemed via Singularity Hub were able to have Google AI come up with a new distribution method by using a game where each player has to share the resources for mutual benefit. Due to how the game is designed, other players will eventually do better, leading to some being richer and others being poorer. In the end, Google AI settled on a method where players would get nothing unless they contributed roughly half their private wealth. Apparently, the AI was able to fare better than other humans who played the game because it based payouts on contributions that were relative rather than absolute. All this complicatedness. It was like a 4-player game with the AI, with the humans, AI and 3 humans. I don't think that roughly equates solving human poverty in an AI game, but the fact that they're looking at this article pops up that AI could be our savior. We could figure out is AI communist, socialist, distributing wealth inequality. You're going to get some Republicans out there are going to be throwing their fit at AI if you're going to go down that route with it. But I found that interesting. That article popped up, and then let's get to this last one. What I mentioned, is it communist or socialist? And I see this from the Daily Mail. China claims to have developed an AI that can read the minds of Communist Party members to determine how receptive they are to thought education. Is that lovely? And since deleted article, they took that crap down quick. Let's see. China has reportedly created an artificial intelligence system that can assess the loyalty of its Communist Party members. According to Didi Tang, a reporter for the Times in Beijing, the system has been developed by researchers at the Hefei Comprehensive National Science Center. It can now analyze facial expressions and brain waves of Communist Party members. How does it do that? Determine how receptive they are to thought education. Tang says the technology was detailed in an article that was uploaded to the internet on July 1st and deleted shortly after. I wonder why. The article said, on one hand, it can judge how party members have accepted thought and political education. On the other hand, it will provide real data for the thought and political education so it can be improved and enriched. The IA tech will solidify confidence and determination of the Communist Party members to be grateful to the party, listen to the party, and follow the party. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that just great? What great use for the AI. I'm telling you guys, you know, technology can be a great thing. AI might end up being a great thing, but when you put it in the hands of communist dictatorships or criminal corporate enterprises of America, it can be an evil thing. And they already have like a social, I bet it's connected to their Skynet. They literally named their watchful eye over everybody's social media Skynet. Like I said, Terminator's not a blueprint. That much power, and I'm just aghast at what's coming technology-wise, what could be used to enslave people. That's what this is. I mean, thought police right there. They're reading your mind with AI, and the AI determines, gee, he's not loyal, and you disappear.
Is it Skynet or Sky News that Australia uses?
Sky News. China has Skynet as their watchful eye over other people on social media. That's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Beware of the AI. I don't know. There's a lot of articles lately about AI. I don't know if something's coming down the pipeline or we're on the precipice of new AI technology, but it's a bit scary. But that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Our guests tonight are Sivan Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie. Sivan has written an excellent book I'm almost finished with called Entering the Mind. And tonight, join us with Entering the Mind. Let's go deep dive into the consciousness. What is consciousness? What is awareness? These are great questions you should have. You should think deeply. I think so many people in life right now are going through life just running on emotions, fear, and anxiety. I'm right there with you. I deal with anxiety. I'm trying to get better, and I've been trying to get better with meditation. I really, really, truly am enjoying this book, and I highly recommend it if you have an interest in meditation or just looking deeply within oneself. This is the book right here. Totally love it. Entering the Mind with Sivan Hassett, and we'll have his wife on also, Rachel Reid Wilkie. They were both practitioners of Dzogchen meditation. We'll get all into that after the short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest, the true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS ranging.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guests are Sivan Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie. They are co-conspirators in all things with a heavy emphasis on spirit, which together they've been exploring since the day they met. Throughout the years, they have collaborated on numerous projects in the arts, both in Los Angeles and New York City. Their times in the East Village culminated in a monumental exhibition, Documents of Love, at the famed Hosfelt Gallery in Chelsea, where the couple exhibited a diverse body of work, poetry, paintings, photography, a short film to the attendance of thousands. Upon returning to Los Angeles, Sivan and Rachel formed Riot Material magazine, a new, now thriving and widely read literary cultural magazine with its eye on art, word, and forward-aiming thought. Rachel and C are the rare married couple who not only work and create together, but practice together day after day, side by side, often knee to knee, in the singular pursuit of knowing the deeper self beyond the conceptual self, that timeless, eternal being which bursts forth the temporal one. To that end, the pandemic years saw the couple in contemplative retreat at their high desert ranch in northern Mojave, a sacred landscape which sits just below 12,000-foot peaks of the eastern Sierra Nevadas. Here beyond their full immersion into the meditative practice, Sivan wrote Entering the Mind, while Rachel delivered to the world her inaugural spoken song album titled XI. I've been reading Entering the Mind. I'm almost finished with it. Just had a few days to read it lately. I've been real busy. But I'm loving it. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to get back into meditation. It's hard when you have two kids that are screaming and yelling. Only times I can find are late at night when I'm too tired. But lately, it's been my breaks at work. I need it because I have stress and anxiety, and I know that one of the best ways to deal with it from my previous years of meditating is to meditate. And I'm trying to find the best practice, and I'm really rejuvenated in my thought about meditating again with this book, and I highly recommend it to a lot of people. It covers Dzogchen meditation, Tibetan meditation. If you're not familiar with Tibetan meditations or Tibet in itself, it's a fascinating culture. I've had an innate fascination with Tibet and their spiritual practices. And I really want to get into tonight this idea of entering the mind, being aware of your awareness or the innate mind. These are deep concepts, deep thoughts. So hang in there with us. We'll have them for at least an hour. Maybe after our second commercial break, we'll open the phone lines up and you can ask some questions of them. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let me bring C and Rachel on here. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Hi,
How are
we're
you?
good. Thanks, Jason.
Oh, and it is dark there now. You don't have that earth real glow behind you from the sun. Well, welcome. It is an honor to have you on. Like I said, I've truly been enjoying the book, Entering the Mind. I've read when I was in my younger 20s, I really got into, my mom got into, separately, we both got into Buddhism. And I feel, we can get into all these deeper subjects later, but I really feel like it's a past life thing with me. But I really got into Buddhism really early on in the 20s, really when I was 20 years old to like 24, 25. And I was even doing it up until my 30s, and then I had my kids. And I got off of it. So I'm interested to hear a lot about it tonight and maybe help me and other listeners kind of find a path back to these things, or what's the best path for practice and the purpose of meditation. For me, I know it's helping with my fear and anxiety and stress that I currently am always dealing with. So I really am really grateful that you sent me this book because I'm truly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for that. It's so nice to hear.
Now, I guess we can start with Sivan. You wrote this book. I would really love to hear how you got started in this practice. You know, what brought you to this? I have to say, a lot of people that I met that are really deep into any of the Buddhist spiritual practices have had a lot of other weird experiences in life that open their eyes, in a sense, to that there's something beyond this crude matter that we are.
Well, yeah, I think life is a tough game, and when you're young and you come up against things that you don't understand or pressures that you weren't expecting, they kind of force you into thinking, first of all, how do you skirt past a lot of these difficulties? But as you get older, you begin to recognize that there's got to be something more than just having to deal with the trauma of living from day to day. Also, the joy, of course. But like you, I was battling fear and anxiety, and I just felt I needed something, and it wasn't, I tried the drugs, and those work great while you're on drugs, but
right.
But when you're trying to just live a normal life, and I too had children, so of course you got to look for something healthier, and meditation is it. And what's beautiful about Dzogchen is it takes you to the top level of meditation. Because most meditation, of course, all meditations are great. They help you to relax and they help you to kind of get introspective. But Dzogchen takes you to that self that it gives rise to the self that we present in the world from day to day. And as we get to know that self, we really rise into our highest self. And it's amazing.
You know what? Reading your book, it brings me to, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of where I ended in my meditation. Like this endless circle. Like I'm aware, like
Yes.
I'm aware of my awareness, and then I lose it.
Yes.
And I'm I know I'm probably doing a billion things wrong, but I really kind of understood what you're getting at, though, because I felt that I don't know how to describe it, but it's catching yourself thinking of yourself. Like I don't know I don't know what to say. It's like the snake eating itself. I don't know. It's this weird instance of realizing this awareness is happening with no other thought behind it.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly it. And of course, you can partake on a meditation practice, and at the beginning you're sort of training your mind just to quieten down. That's step number one. But when you actually enter into that altered state of consciousness, as you said, you become almost face to face with your consciousness, and so your consciousness is aware of itself. And that is this moment and this realization that you experience. And as you said, you don't necessarily maintain it for long. It could be a nanosecond. It could be a second.
It's not long for me.
Yeah, that's right. And that's how you begin. And then obviously with time and practice, you can actually begin to sort of experience that second and that minute. Then it can become longer and longer. But the great thing is that you've even experienced that in the first place.
But the important thing about that, Jason, is that that moment where the awareness is aware of itself is the moment that you recognize that the body is not the source of awareness, that the self is not the source of awareness. It's this ongoing, timeless, eternal awareness that lives beyond the body and lives, it's present at all times. And so this is what you're learning to connect with. And it gives you, it alleviates the fear and the anxiety, because you recognize that the body is not the source of all of your experiences. This awareness that you're trying to get to know.
Like I said, for me, I've had a lot of weird experiences in my life. I mean, countless weird, unusual experiences. I just know I think a lot of people have these experiences. They just don't talk about it. And that's why I do a show, to give people a format to talk about these things. Mm-hmm. And like I said, when I've met people like you guys that are deep into this as a practice, as a life, I usually find that there's some kind of, this is a show about the paranormal, but I usually find that there is some kind of paranormal occurrence or something beyond the reality of, like for my instance, when I was 4 or 5 years old, me and my cousin Phil saw a green floating head fly through the room. So when I was a kid, all bets were off. I realized then, if a green floating head, it looks like the Wicked Witch of the West, can float through the room and do this, and everybody said none of that stuff is real, then they're full of crap, and reality is not what we know it. My mind was open ever since to anything's possible.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely
Totally.
True.
Totally.
I mean, I've been experiencing ghosts for my whole life. So I have that background where I was always aware, strangely, not so much as a kid, but from teenage years on, I was aware that I was experiencing presences in many different houses that I would go and visit. And I would just often sit down and have a full-blown conversation with them. And
Really?
When no one was looking.
Well, yeah. But then, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like I'm a big fan of Don Juan, Carlos Castaneda, the first book, really. I was just talking with a bunch of friends. They're all talking about taking DMT or ayahuasca, or I can't say it right. Ayahuasca. Yeah, taking ayahuasca or peyote, and I'm like, those days are over for me. I can't do that stuff. But I wasn't downing them for it, because I'm like, I brought up Don Juan. It's like if they haven't had like an experience like me or you had, Rachel, we see that reality isn't exactly what science or we've been told this material world is, that there's something more. Sometimes these experiences of psychedelics wake people up, and I'm not totally against that, as a doorway. What is your thoughts on that?
I think it's great.
Yeah, we're totally open to it. In fact, we often refer to the M&M experience, which is mushrooms and meditation. And, and they feed each other. You know, with your meditation practice, then when you take a macro dose of mushrooms, you can use your meditation practicing and training to actually enter and use the mushroom experience to not control the opening into the wider consciousness, but also, and then in return, your explosion into this other state of consciousness can also inform your meditation practice on a daily basis. So I think they actually go 100% hand in hand with this whole awareness and appreciation of different altered consciousness.
I wish I would have taken that attempt to have like consciousness of the last time I tried doing anything like that. I ended up on a bathroom floor going, "Why did I do this?" So, you know, but I look back, I would never. I just is not for me. I want to just meditate, get better at that. But like I said, I don't down it for people. What I'm trying to get at is, I think for a lot of people that come to this topic, I did in my early 20s, and it can feel like, especially trying to quiet. I always love the term monkey mind. You know, there's like you said, there's so many different forms of meditation, but I think they all struggle with the idea of quieting the mind at first. And that's hard for somebody like me. It's imaginative. My brain goes a million miles a minute sometimes, and it's really hard. And it also is a belief, am I even doing anything here? And like I said, what gets people down this path, I think, is an experience of things are not this reality I'm told it is.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about Dzogchen is it addresses that exact problem where people are meditating. After a while, they're like, what am I doing? You know, why am I doing this? You know, the mind isn't quieting. You know, you find yourself 15 minutes in, you've been thinking about something else the whole time. So Dzogchen gives you the opportunity to learn how to train that mind to quiet down. Then it points you towards those little open moments where there's nothing there, and then it instructs you how to enter that space. And the beautiful thing about Dzogchen is it gives you an exact purpose on why you're meditating. So you never lose sight of the reason why you're meditating. You never question, what am I doing here? You always know if you're reading and you're receiving teachings and you have an understanding of where you're going. And mushrooms will help point that to you, because when mushrooms obliterates the ego, this is exactly where you're being pointed to, but meditation will teach you how to get there without the mushrooms.
I have a question.
Yes.
As far as my own meditation goes, and I don't know if it falls along line of what you do or not, but one of the big things people talk about is trying to quiet your mind and be still and everything. I like to have, a little marijuana when I do mine. It just helps relax me and connect better. But instead of trying to fight it and quiet my mind, I've learned to just kind of let it go and just let my mind flow. And when I'm doing that, I'm not really paying attention to anything, and I'm just letting it do what it wants to do. And I'm usually under the stars or looking at the moon or something, and all of a sudden this clarity just pops in my mind. And it's the best clarity. So I don't know if I feel like I'm doing it right.
Yes, I think that's definitely it, because the problem is if you're fighting those thoughts, then you're really getting yourself distracted and really getting yourself in a little quandary. If you allow it to just flow and observe it and let it just happen, then the mind naturally will find its quiet space, and that's exactly where you've entered into when you just get that clarity. The clarity is it. So I do think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's really key, as you said, that you let go, because that is when you actually let go of the attachment to the thoughts.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with the thoughts themselves. It's our attachment to the thought that we need to train ourselves to let go. So you're exactly right with the way that you're going about your meditation practice. And as Chris says, it's awesome when you actually reach that place of stillness and clarity, not because you've forced it to happen, but because you've just allowed it to unfold.
And what Dzogchen is very clearly instructing you to do is, when the clarity hits, is for you to kind of perk up the awareness, kind of pay attention to that clarity, observe it, because that's the doorway into the eternal self, that moment of clarity. Now what they say is rest in that clarity, that stillness, and the information begins to come to you. The knowledge comes to you, and this knowledge is eternal. It's wise. It's beautiful. So this
Thank
is
you so much.
Yeah.
No, that's a great question, Jamie. I mean, people's thoughts of like, you know what? Actually, this brings up a good question because Jamie, brought up the usage of marijuana. I have CBD. I use helps me with anxiety and that. But there's also a big part in your book that I really was like cheering on as I was reading it about the body. Having to take care of the body and our real big problem we have with big our agricultural companies and pesticides like Monsanto did, now Bayer. And how that's affecting our body. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I do think that's a really important facet. It's hard for somebody to get centered or get in their mind. I mean, like right now, I got a huge sciatic nerve that's killing me. When your body's not healthy, I loved your term when you said hemorrhaging from the inside. Because I feel like, me and my wife are starting, my wife, I should say, not me. I'm trying to help, but not that much. But she started a garden. Like she's trying to grow her own vegetables and stuff. We're looking for more non-GMO things because this is really concerning to me. And you really hit home. And like I said, I was like literally pumping my fist, cheering you on in this book as I'm reading it for somebody really going, bringing this out there.
Well, I think this is the big blind spot in all meditation practices, that people aren't paying attention to what we're eating. And, really, truly, if you're eating terrible foods, and you could be eating fruits and vegetables all day long, but if they're just laden with pesticides, then you're going to be sick and you're going to be unclear. Your mind is going to be in a fog. You're going to have anxiety issues just born of this internal hemorrhaging, and you're literally hemorrhaging within inside. All of the cell walls are breaking down. The tight junctions in the gut are breaking down, and you're bleeding out in all directions. And so for people to say, well, I need to start meditating in this moment, you can't. There's no way you can rest in clarity when you're sick inside. And really, by cleaning up your diet within a few weeks, you'll notice the difference. If you just went organic right away, and I know people say, yeah, well, there's problems with organic as well. The great thing about organics now is that it's available in almost every supermarket across the country. You could actually buy all of your groceries mostly organic. And in this way, you're getting away with a lot of pesticides. Now, like your wife's doing everything in your own garden, if you have that luxury and that time, that's awesome. But if the least you could do is buy organic and eat only organic, you're going to be feeling great in about a month. And then within that month, you could do some practices like learning how to just like bring the awareness back into your body. Let the body heal itself because it's going to do that naturally. That's what it wants to do. And then kick into your higher meditation practice within a month. So give yourself a month. Just say, I'm going clean, and then plan on a month and a half, and then just read all the great books that will help you when you're ready to go into the deep meditation practice. Read those books so you're ready.
When I really was in deep into like meditating back in my 20s, and this is where I'm trying to get back to. I read some really great books from different forms of Buddhism. I really got interested. Thich Nhat Hanh, Pieces Every Step is one of my all-time favorite books, and White Path, Old Clouds. Is that the really big book on Buddha that he wrote? And there's a lot of others, and a lot of it donated from my mom, who got into Buddhism around the same time. I as a spiritual person, I don't subscribe to any one religion. I like to look into all, explore everything. I'm a seeker of truth. And I think there's many, like they say, many doors of the Dharma. For you, what really, you obviously you studied with a Dzogchen master. It got you, what brought you to Dzogchen? Like, how did you really, first start learning about this practice?
I think it must have been luck. It could have been destiny. I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot of Buddhist books as well, and they were answering a lot of questions, but they weren't answering all my questions. And I kept getting these references to this peak of the Buddhist teachings, and they were mentioning Dzogchen or the Great Perfection or Ati Yoga. They were using several different terms, but at the time these teachings weren't fully out there.
Right.
And so I was going into the index of these books and reading the notes at the bottom of the page and getting references to Dzogchen, and then trying to find online, or not online, but going to the local bookstore in LA to find what any book on Dzogchen, and they might have had 2 or 3 at the time, and I just grabbed those. They weren't the best written books then. They're getting much better. But I stumbled on this guy, Urgent Rinpoche and Khensen Thrangu Rinpoche, and those two, and then Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche. And then I recognized that they were still alive, so I just sought them out.
What I found interesting about the history of Dzogchen with Tibet and is the fact that this was kept secret. Like it would only be what you talk in the book about how it would only be passed down from one master to one student and through a straw, through a wall. Like it had to be. Why was it so secret? Hundreds of years ago. Now it's not.
I mean, it's a great question. There was obviously a system in place where they felt at the time that most practitioners weren't ready for this kind of almost mind-blowing teaching. And the truth is, when you do kind of begin to access these points of the teaching that are within yourself, they are mind-blowing. They really do shatter the ego and shatter the perspective, the normal perspective on the world. And I think we're able to receive these teachings now because consciousness is evolving quite rapidly, and perhaps for many different reasons. Maybe the earth is coming to an end at some point soon, or society or humanity is going to be wiped off the planet. Who knows why people are starting to wake up to needing to get these answers. And so even the great Dzogchen teachers who were alive back in the day, and in their time, they weren't allowed to give these teachings to anybody except for one student. Now they're being encouraged to, because I think there's the synchronicity of our times is allowing for the teachings to come into play. And we're ready for them now. So I think that's part of it.
I don't know if I think we need them. I don't know if we're ready for them. Because I see. This is one of the things I've tried to learn, and the last few years especially, not to be judgment of others, not to be judgment of myself, which I do both regularly. It's a constant struggle, but I can't help but judge society. I'm not any better. I have a cell phone, a smartphone, and we're all so distracted by everything. And I mean, politics now is undiscussable with people because now it's their identity, and everything's become identity. And with social media, and I'm an Instagram star. It's like I don't like the direction we're going. No. Right. I don't like the things I see. I do like that I see more people, shows like mine out there, and more books and more interest in this spirituality. We're not living in dogmatic culture as much anymore, hopefully. But that people are opening their eyes. I see hope, but I also see, that doesn't look good. I fear for humanity. I've seen the movie Idiocracy, and I fear we're going that way. Yeah. I want, that's why I do the show. I want people to hear about something like Dzogchen. Rachel, for you, I mean, did you come into Dzogchen because of meeting Chris?
I did, yes. I didn't have a formal type of practice at all, spiritual practice, that is. But as I said, I was very much aware of different dimensions and different realities, and I was very much aware of how an individual perspective can be extremely different from somebody else's individual perspective, but how somehow they're all valid. Yet it's a choice. We have this big collective consciousness that we all share in, but we all have our own individual consciousness that we contribute towards. And I feel that in Chris and I, we met 13 years ago, but I really took on 3 years ago this practice of meditation, and Chris introduced me to Dzogchen. And so it's been, the last 2 years or so that I've been focusing on the Dzogchen practice. And it has radically changed my being, as it were, and I mean that positively. Meaning, it's you spoke about judgment, and we all do it. We judge others, we judge ourselves, we judge our thoughts, we judge our thinking. We probably have about 10,000 different voices going on in our head all the time, telling us all sorts of things that we don't necessarily need to listen to. But Dzogchen, the practice of Dzogchen literally cuts through all of that, and it allows you to let go of that identity. And when you start to let go of your identity that perhaps you've spent your whole life curating and creating and then sort of selling to the outside world, when you learn to actually let go of your judgment of yourself and of your thoughts and of your mind and the way that your mind is behaving, you're able, and also your emotions, you're able to actually let go of your identity. And I went through about a year in of daily practice, I went through almost like a grieving process where I actually just wept. And I wept because I realized what I was doing is I was letting go of this old identity that I had been attached to for so many years. And it was like just saying goodbye to this person that I no longer needed to be, that I no longer had to uphold any kind of standards. I no longer had to be that person in the face of the world, in the face of myself, in the face of my husband. And so, you know, that night I was swinging on a hammock at the time, and I came back in and I told Chris what had been happening, and we celebrated. It was like, yeah, she's gone. It was awesome.
Well, I feel like I get what you're saying, because I've talked about on the show when I was in my early 20s, when I really started to get into meditation, and that I had a point in realization that I was being the person I was being perceived as.
Yes.
But that was not real. That's not even at all really me. You know, I don't know who I am. That's where I came down to. But I know I'm not that. And it was perception of friends and people around me that built up over years that I'm like, that's not me.
Yes.
And I needed to let go of them and that. And it's not that I, told them I can't be friends anymore. I just went on in my own direction.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people have to realize that, and that's what I'm talking about identity. I mean, if you look at social media in its sense, it's about my identity. I like this, I want this, or I like this, I hate this. Everybody's got to tell you about their poop, that they just had or something. I don't know, but everybody's got to tell you about everything. And they got to make their opinion. And I was just as guilty as everybody. I've really, the last couple of years, backed off. Like, I just don't have much to say on social media anymore. Mm-hmm. I'll post pictures of my kids, mainly for my parents and in-laws to see,
Yes.
But otherwise, I don't have much interest in communicating with people. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but I don't have anything to say. You either know or you don't.
For me, that's a beginning. That's a good beginning. And it sounds to me like you say you meditated when in your 20s. The beautiful thing about this practice is it doesn't stop when you stop. So you were learning skills at that time, and you were learning techniques, and this continues even when you get re-distracted and re-pulled back into the cultural thing that we do. So I'm listening to you now, and I'm hearing tremendous advancement. Even though you say you're busy all the time and you got the kids, you're still, I think, practicing whether you know it or not. And so it sounds to me like you're ready to dive back in more formally.
I am. I really am. I'm looking for something to work mainly with my fear, anxiety, and stress. I don't want to be this person that fears. Like, my son had was invited to a water park today. And immediately up in my gut rises, oh God, no, somebody's going to take him. He's not under my watchful care. And, all the fear and stress and anxiety, when it concerns my kid, I can block a lot of fear and stress and anxiety from a lot of things or let it go. But when it comes to my kids, it's overwhelming.
It's primal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very primal. Yeah. And I don't want to be, and I tried not to let it on him. I said, you're going to be careful, you're going to be good, you're be careful, attentive to what you're doing, pay attention to your surroundings, do what the parent tells you to do, be safe. He was a great kid. But I don't want to put that fear on him. I don't want to, I'm trying to let my kids grow up differently than I did. Mom, I love you, but you're a worrywart. I know she's watching. You're a worrywart. My wife blames you for my worrywartness. I don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's true. I mean, this, as Chris says, this practice really does. It's not like we said before, it's not that you're pushing away the fear and you're pushing away the anxiety. But what happens when you continue to train every day and you commit to that journey of calming the mind and entering into this space where you are actually at one with your awareness, and your awareness is at one with the collective awareness, then what happens is that the fear and the anxiety and the worry, it just falls away. And this will happen gradually over time. It could be a couple of weeks, it could be a couple of months, it might take a year, but you will notice over time, it's not something maybe that magically happens, but over a little bit of practice every single day, then you'll look back and you'll realize, like, wow, I'm not reacting in that way anymore. I'm not experiencing that fear like I used to. you build up trust, not only trust in your being, but trust in yourself, trust in others, and then trust in the universe. And this is something I think that we as a community, as a conscious community, can reinstall in us, because the society out there is not allowing us to trust in it, so we have to kind of form this trust from within. And Dzogchen meditation really gets you there, and it really sort of builds up this trust in yourself and in others.
Well, you know what I found that I did enjoy too in the book, and the perspective of Dzogchen, is this idea of, because a lot of times you talk about the collective unconscious or the unified field consciousness, or I'm really interested. Super big time interested in that. But what I'd loved in your book and the idea of Dzogchen is this idea that, but it realizes that there is your own individual innate consciousness perspective. Because I've read a lot of different books over the years on the topic of meditation, and they really get in this. There's, of course, we definitely do in this book. There's no I, there's no me, and we're all one and all that. But there has to. I like it. Kind of was an awakening reading your book of the idea that there. In the end, you are looking at your own consciousness in that moment. It's not the collective unconscious or any of that. It's your own consciousness.
Yes. Because if we were the collective consciousness, if one of us awakened, for instance, the Buddha or the Dalai Lama, then we would all awaken. But that's not the truth. The truth is, out of this endless universe of consciousness, we have our very unique, specific perspective, and we have to work with it and develop it. Otherwise, we're floundering within the larger state of consciousness. Now, it's important to just take that in, to know that you have to work to learn your own awareness, because when you do begin to enter into those higher states of awareness, you do recognize that you are one with the total consciousness. But so just allow yourself to kind of like know that that's out there somewhere in advance, and you can get there in this lifetime. If you practice, you don't have to practice like a monk in a cave. You just practice on a daily basis, and you will arrive to an amazing place within a few years. But in the meantime, you know that you're working on yourself, and what you're working on is trying to break down this ego that's in our way, that is concerned with identity, that does not want to see you become enlightened, that wants to see you in fear, because then it strategizes ways to take care of you. This is our own ego. We're working with ourselves at all times. So the awareness, that higher awareness that we're aiming for, is the one that will obliterate that ultimately. But it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, like practicing anything, becoming a cook or yoga or martial arts.
Do you think, one of the questions I have when it comes to meditating too, is this awareness of awareness, I guess. Yeah. I've had times, right now, my meditative practice, like I joked at the beginning of the show, it's not a joke, it's the seriousness of it. The only time I find the quiet time, and I actually got to the part in your book when you talk about meditating with wind. I was like, ooh, this is really kind of where I'm at, is on my breaks from work. I will go out to my car. Parking lot's usually quiet, and there's always, sometimes there's this nice, I'm right by Lake Michigan. There'll be this nice, gentle breeze that'll come through, and I will just let everything go. As a thought comes, I let it go, and I breathe in and out, and I will get to this state, and I'm not like sitting in some yoga pose or, 7-point, I'm laid back in a chair, but I'm not sleeping. Yeah. Sometimes I mind. It's a long day. But most of the time I'm not sleeping. I get into this state where eventually I'm not even thinking about the breath. I'm not thinking about anything. And if I have like a thought pattern, it's like I hear it in the background, like my own thoughts. It's like it's a separate, like I can almost, like the thoughts going on in the background, I'm almost not even listening to it. Mm-hmm. But I realize, wait, there's a thought line going on here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like two separate consciousnesses. I don't know what this. It's a newer thing for me.
It's at the beginning it is two separate consciousnesses, and you're trying to get to that, as Jamie spoke to, the clarity, which feels like a separate consciousness, and that's the consciousness that you enter into and that you learn to remain in. But what you realize is that's the consciousness that gives rise to that whole thinking consciousness. And, Rachel spoke to the fear earlier about, it will begin to disappear. All of these things, when you begin to meditate more and hear the wind and look at the fear and look at your thought, you recognize that this is all arising in that larger eternal consciousness, that awareness being that we're trying to get to know and trying to understand. And that's where our practice is taking us. So it no longer is like coming right up fear or thought, and so you're blinded to everything else. The reality is that it can all exist in the big spaciousness of our awareness. And so that's where the practice is taking us. It's very organic, and it really is totally in line with nature itself, that there's nothing to reject. It's about allow the thoughts, allow the fear, observe it. Because when you observe it face to face, it kind of disappears. But when you turn away from it, it gets bigger and wants to haunt you a little bit more. So it's a beautiful practice.
What I found interesting in these little things I've been doing on my break with that whole separate thing is the way that it feels. Like you say, that they're not dualistic. They are should be one. But the fact that I become unattached to that thought line that's happening, and so much so that I'm like, wait a second, I still have this awareness that this other thought line's happening.
Yeah.
It's just a weird feeling that it kind of stumps me at that time. So that's, I'm reading your book, trying to like get past that stump and get into that rest mode of it, where I can actually rest in that, I guess, awareness.
Yes, that's it.
Well, I think that's the key. It's becoming familiar with it, because once you familiarize yourself with that experience, then each time you do it, it just becomes more comfortable. And it is a little bit weird, the first time you start to tap into this, you do experience this. Who's looking at who's
right. It's like the snake that eats itself. It's the,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly it. And I have a couple of girlfriends, and we just have this little catchphrase. It's like, well, who's who? And we're like, when we just share these experiences, because it's very hard to put into words, and it's a very hard experience to explain. But if you've felt it and you've experienced it, then you know exactly what we're referring to here. And the thing is, though, the more you do it and the more you become familiar with it, and as Chris says, you rest in it, and then you just allow it, and it unfolds, and you just become more and more familiar with it. But the key is recognizing it in this instance. So once you have this experience, you recognize it and you go, oh, that's it. And of course, the moment that you start thinking again, that's it, then you've probably lost it. But the fact is that in your body, in your whole essence, in your awareness, you recognize awareness, and that is the key. And then from that, you just become more and more familiar with it. And as Chris says, it gives you a purpose. So you're sort of aiming for that. You're organically aiming for that each time you meditate.
What it reminds me of is other things I've experimented with, like trying to do out of body or lucid dreaming. It's like I get out of body, I'm like, I'm out of body, I'm back in. Or I'm lucid. Oh wow, I'm realizing I'm lucid dreaming and I'm awake. Like I'm out of the, I had one where I was meditating so hard. And this is definitely my really early days of meditating. Like I was doing it for a couple years. I was in my 20s, and I was totally doing the whole lotus position, meditating. One of the best times I ever had. I actually fell asleep, but lucidly. Like I was in a realm of pure compassion. I call it that because I felt that in my life twice, where it's just this pure compassionate love. And I was in this starry field, and it was lucid. I was awake in the dream, and I know people have had lucid dreams naturally and all that, but I meditated myself into that. And for a while I chased that tail, like I wanted that experience again and never could get it again. And that threw me off. There's a lot of different meditations you talk about.
That's a concurrent practice with Dzogchen, is lucid dreaming. They call it dream yoga.
Really?
And you learn how to lucid dream, because this is another place where you can get teachings from great masters in this lucid dream state. But also, it's training you how to stabilize in the death state, because when we go to sleep and begin to dream, this is kind of the almost the perfect metaphor for our death, and it's very similar. And if you can get stable in your dream state, then you're going to be dead on to becoming enlightened in the death state, because that's a great opportunity when we die. There's a moment between, when the consciousness leaves the body and moves into kind of the bardo of that state, that you have this great opportunity to awaken. And the lucid dreamers have a one-up on us. So if you can continue in that practice, you'd be doing yourself a great service.
I never did it again. That's the thing. I chased that tail for a while, trying to do that again.
It is a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah, it's just something that happened. I guess the closest other thing I ever had to that was a experience where I was doing a guided meditation, and I went from the normal meditative state to a kind of lucid state where I saw a field, a river, and my grandfather who had passed away across that stream, and felt like he communicated, like I was having an actual afterlife communication. You talk about communications like this, in this higher state of consciousness. What is this? I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, we talk about the unified field consciousness or, collective consciousness, but what is it when we are reaching this higher state and we are being communicated with by something? Because people do have these experiences like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the awareness that we're seeking to really get to know and really stabilize in Dzogchen is an awareness that's unbounded. It's not bounded by the body. It's not bounded by the planet. So when you're able to stabilize in it, or if you're able to acquire skill in the lucid state, the lucid dreaming state, it's the same state. You're aiming for the same space. And this space has access to all information and all beings. And, you can really learn to communicate. You can develop that skill as well. But of course, you'd have to be careful not to get too distracted in that practice. But really, the state of awareness, and in Dzogchen they call it Rigpa, and this is just this awakened state. It's empty because you recognize that nothing is really solid. Nothing is nothing's really solid, and so you begin to just stabilize there, and you're free to go, basically.
I think where I got really interested, you speak of the Bardo with Tibetan Buddhism. Was the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
Where I really started to get deep into Tibetan Buddhism because their whole, my fascination, my favorite movies, everything in my life, it's been a fascination what exists on the other side.
Yes.
In the afterlife. And the Tibetans really, really got deep down into that. And I've always been fascinated. What is your thoughts of the realms of existence, Bardo, the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Should people look into this? Because what they were trying to do, what it is it's a guide path to reach enlightenment at death. It's a path, I would guess you could say, to like it all ends at this point. This is your best opportunity right here at death to realize. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
It's. I mean, again, maybe because I had these experiences of communing with those on the other side, as it were. I've been aware that death is not the end. That's number one. And this is, of course, I share this belief, I'm sure, with many others, and especially with Buddhism. It's not considered the end. Like this life that we're living right now is a bardo. So this, the bardo of the living. This is one bardo. And bardo literally means transition. So this is the transition that we're experiencing in this bardo. And then we move into the bardo of dying, which is the moment when we're actually terminally ill, to the moment that consciousness leaves us. And then we move into another bardo, which is the bardo of becoming. And so all these states of bardo, which is like the transitional life, and it becomes a cycle when we re-enter into the human form or we re-enter into other life forms. They're all opportunities to awaken. So they're all opportunities for us to learn, to receive teachings, and to awaken into this state of consciousness. So consciousness is there at all times. That is eternal. That is never ending. It was never born. It's never going to die. But the life cycle is something that continues to transition into one bardo from another bardo, and it continues. Now, when you're when you read the texts of the Buddhist, you read Dzogchen texts, you read Buddhism, you read also Zen, they're all very much aware that life is continual and life doesn't end at death. And death is very much a part of life. And I think that in itself, even just understanding that and accepting that as a philosophy in itself can reduce an incredible amount of fear from your living life. And so really, one of my favorite books is the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dying, which was, I believe, written in the 90s. And so it speaks about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it actually really speaks about it in terms of how you can actually incorporate those teachings into your living life so that you become more fulfilled and more happy and more joyous and accepting and allowing things to unfold in your living life, because first of all, you've accepted that death is a part of life. But it also teaches in very, very beautiful ways how to actually care for those who are dying around you as well. So it's a holistic approach to this whole idea of death that I think that the Western society in particular has sort of lost in recent years. And maybe now we're looking at maybe a couple of 100 years, the Western society has been moving away from accepting death as part of life.
Well, look, we got billionaires trying to make themselves, basically, cyborgs or whatever. And talk about these are the things that scare me. They want to, I don't know if there was a show Upload that me and my wife loved recently, had 2 seasons on Amazon where they basically are artificially, or they're uploading people's consciousness. I don't think you could ever do this, but into a virtual afterlife, people
Right.
trying to live forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, but there's a whole other journey,
Right.
to explore.
Would
Would you want to?
hell?
Yeah. But like I said, I've always been fascinated with this. I mean, I've had guests on, I've numerous guests on that have had near-death experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that the takeaways from a lot of those that I see is, for one, in their moment of trauma and pain, they were separated from their body, and they
Yes.
just detached from it. They're
Yes.
detached from their body, laying there as a bunch of broken bones.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
had a couple guests describe it as just literally looking at it like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that, and that should give people some hope. I mean, about what the next step is. I myself, when you talk about cycles, I've talked about on the show numerous times. I've had 2 very vivid dreams of past lives, like where I woke up just a knowing that I was just given a glimpse of both of them. I died in those dreams, but we're given a glimpse of another life, another perspective. One, I was a Buddhist monk.
Awesome.
And in that, and both these things explained how I've been wired all my life. I with the Buddhist monk thing, was this monk. I don't know where. I know it had to be somewhat not too long ago, because the soldiers that in this dream had weapons like rifles.
Yeah.
And in this, my temple, I don't know what you'd call him, a temple master, the master of the temple, was I guess a fraud. I had caught him smoking opium.
Oh.
And I went to the authorities, which were the soldiers, and was like the Judas. And they came to the temple and they just started killing everybody. And the last part of that dream is me running through a jungle for my life and coming up to this ridge, and there's these soldiers in gray uniforms with rifles that shoot me in the chest, and I wake up like feeling it.
Wow.
I woke up sweating and everything. And
Wow.
to me, when I looked at that in meditation, I've looked at that deeply, that very vivid dream. And I've seen like that really explains, ever since I was a little kid, I've never trusted any authority. I've never trusted any religious authority. And I still don't. I have an innate thing to not trust any of those things. I'm interested. I'm very spiritual, very interested, but I could never join an organized religion, say I'm part of an organized religion. And I never don't trust governments or military or anything. I have a deep distrust of them that I swear since I was a little kid, innate in me.
Yeah.
Me too.
So yeah, see, and it's just fascinated that we are going through these rebirths and these cycles, but we carry these things on. Like I said, I feel like I was hardwired. Do people have to kind of see this to understand? I mean, do we need to kind of explore our past lives at all?
I don't think so. I think, if you're getting access to that information, that's great. But I think you can have that near-death experience in this life, where you can have an awareness to all lives, meaning the knowing that it continues on and it has been going on for a long time, by entering into this state of meditation where you see it firsthand, and it does become like a near-death experience. You actually observe your own body as something other than, or as something within the awareness, not where you're getting where you're projecting your eyes out of. So when you enter these higher states of meditation, you see it all. You see the past lives. You see, meaning you could see your own past life, but you see that this is an ongoing eternal thing. And you see that, the body isn't the source of anything. It's the vessel that we're in right now that's giving us the best opportunity to learn something. And it's a beautiful thing. We need to take care of it and protect it. But it is dispensable, and it will be dispensed with at some point in this life. We got it, and we're going to walk away from it at some point soon. So meditation allows you to see that very clearly. So it's great.
I think for me, the two dreams I had of past life, the other one, I was a black slave girl that was beaten to death. Was very vivid. I felt every whack and blow of that experience. But I guess the perception, what I woke up with both those feelings is that I was somebody else.
Yes.
Like, I'm Jason, I'm here, I have my personality and characters, but I was also that Buddhist monk, was a totally different person, but that was still innately me. And that little girl was still innately me, but they were different. It's like, so what am I in total? You put all three of those people in a room, but we're the same entity. How does that?
Absolutely. That's so true. I mean, I must say, like the Native American philosophy, which I really admire, is the fact that we see each other all as each other's parents. And the purpose of that is, I mean, we talk about we're all brothers and sisters, but their idea is that at any point in the longevity of life, we have all been at some point each other's parents. And that idea is that, as you said, you can have many, many, many different identities. These identities, they come and go. So yes, you can be, and I would hope, if I don't remember any past lives, but I would hope that I've been blessed with as many different types of life as possible, so that I can experience this and experience that, and be, each time I experience a new life with a new identity, I'm able to actually learn and grow and bring that awareness and that knowledge into the next cycle of life. But the Native Americans, generally speaking, they have, that is inborn, it's inherent to their culture, to their way of thinking, which is why they never see that their life is the significant life at this time. They're constantly thinking of their ancestors and their grandchildren. And so they welcome the cycle of life in every single act, single speech, and every single thought they have. And this is very aligned with the philosophy of Buddhism and Dzogchen in particular.
Tibetans share a lot of stuff with Native Americans, and that's a whole other topic. We got to go to commercial break. You guys want to hang on still?
Yes.
All right. We're going to go to our commercial break, and then we're going to open up the phone lines for you guys if you've got any questions. If you're trying to get into meditation or a regular meditator, I highly recommend this book, is Entering the Mind. We're going to talk more about that with our guests, Sivan Hassett and Reid Wilkie, when we come back from the short commercial break. And like I said, the phone lines will be open. Call into the show. Join the conversation tonight. No judgments here. And if you call in like the last jerk last week, I will hang up on you. Just know anything inappropriate right away, I'm going to hang up on you. But I know a lot of you guys out there are good, always got good questions. Call in, please. Don't be afraid. Call in tonight. Phone lines will be open after the short commercial break.
An experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Can Tim Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is $42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. endless question of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guests are Sivan Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie. We are entering the mind, the final frontier, in my opinion. The last bastion of discovery really is in the mind, in my opinion. What is consciousness? You heard my Alter States commercial a billion times on here. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. Honestly, it was. Because I just love the idea of doing a bunch of hallucinogens in an isolation tank and going deep within yourself to find your primitive self or whatever he did in that movie. I loved it as a kid. I don't know why. I guess it's just innate in me. The mind, the consciousness, what is it, has been, to me, the most fascinating topic of all the topics I cover. I know I love time travel, ghosts, aliens, and all that stuff, but the mind, that's where it's really at. That's where the deepest discoveries we could make. It's right in your own side head, right there. You can really find the realizations that reality is not what everybody tells you it is. You are not what everybody tells you you are. There's so much to discover by going deep within, and that's why I truly love this book I've been reading, Entering the Mind by Sivan Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie, as well, his wife, joining us. We got lines. Let me make sure the lines are open. Hold on. Lines are now open. Call into the show. Join the conversation. Tell us, are you a deep thinker, a deep meditator? Are you going deep within yourself? Are you trying to? These are the people to ask questions of. They are practitioners of Dzogchen, if I'm getting that right, meditation, a Tibetan meditation. I'm really getting, like I said, really enthused to try to get more into meditation after reading this book, and I hope you are too. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Thank you, C and Rachel, for staying on with us tonight. The phone lines are open. We'll see if we get any phone calls. But we were kind of talking before the commercial break a little bit about, past lives, the karmic circle, or all these things that, might be residing within of us that we don't realize. What I was trying to get at, I guess, before the commercial break is that there are aspects to ourselves that are hardwired in our soul. You know what I'm saying? Personality traits. You can see it in your children. You know what I'm saying? You kids are just born certain ways. You know what I'm saying? There's certain things like about us, and I know it's identity. We want to detach from it, but there's something there, that journey of our soul or spirit that has an identity, has something that's different from each individual. And I think it has to be recognized why. And that's why I was trying to get at, about, maybe it's important to kind of know a little bit about your past lives or that. I have a guest on, Chris Lee. He does past life regressions, and his whole purpose of it isn't just to do like a tour of your past lives. There's no point to that. His purpose is okay, you have, for me, I have a bad neck. I have a neck issue, and he takes you in this deep, guide, almost like a guided meditation, but it's hypnotism of where is the source of that neck pain? Is that past life related? And I actually had a really cool experience where I was, I guess, seeing another life where I was being persecuted as a female, witch, and tried to hang myself with my chain. And it did take away a little bit of this neck issue I had. And especially in my fingers and that too, because I also had my fingers crushed. And it's sometimes people are even carrying pains or scars from these past lives. Again, it's your body, it's your spiritual body. These things are, I think, somewhat important to look at, I guess, or to understand who you are innately.
I agree, and I think the more awareness you bring to your experience, awareness is the great equalizer, and it's the great obliterator of all the things that haunt us and all the things that plague us. And so the more awareness you bring to your experience, the better you're going to be by far.
Yeah, like I said, for some people they just want to know their past lives, and like it's like going to tour land. Like I said, my favorite movies when I was a kid and is now, or movies about the afterlife, is Defending Your Life, and that they go on the other side and they go to a place where they can like see their past lives. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's hilarious.
I've
That
seen a lot of
sounds
movies.
fun. Yeah.
I mean, it would be fun, it'd be fun, but I think there's a purpose to like I said, I feel like the visions I had of my past life were gifts spiritually given to me.
Yes.
Yes.
To realize why I'm hardwired the way. The one with the Buddhist monk really about why my feelings innately just how I am hardwired about religion and government. And the little black girl had to do with my issues with my biological father, who had nothing in this life wanted to do with me, but was related to this past life. There's relationships too between people. People realizing that,
Absolutely. And of course, you can see, you can look at the journey of the soul, of the individual soul.
Yeah.
And, we, according to some philosophies, we choose to come back to be born to in a specific time with a specific parent, with specific conditions which they're not ideal. There are no ideal conditions, but they're like perfect for the learning curve of that soul. So the soul enters into presumably, this life that they need to actually experience, and this is the soul's development. So again, like you said, this isn't necessarily what happens to the body and the suffering and the attachment that the body has to this particular life it's experiencing, but the soul is actually on its own purpose, which is to experience certain lessons so that it can evolve and develop its consciousness.
Well, that's why I think that's the hard pill for people to swallow when you get into the topic of reincarnation. It's like I chose this horrible situation, or these horrible parents, or people are like, why would I choose that? I guess the best way I always have equated it is like you pick up a book with a lot of drama and horrible stuff that happens in the book, but you read it all. You invested yourself in that character. You are that character in a sense. If you read like I do with my imagination, you are investing yourself in that storyline. You could turn away from it any time. They all have kill your darlings, as they say in writing. They're all going to have heartbreak in it. Like my kids were crying over this ending of Stranger Things just recently. I'm like,
one more episode to go. Don't tell us.
Okay, shh. But boy, they were heartbreaking. Just wait. But I was trying to explain to them, like, in writing, and I know you were a professor of literature, right? I mean, I see everything as in fractals. Like we redo things in the way the universe works. Like video games is a way of representing, reflecting what avatars are, what we are, and literature and making characters and stories for writers is a way of recreating a universe. I was trying to explain to my kids, like, would you be interested at all if there was no drama, if there was no fight or no pain? You're separate from it, but it is a story, and if it was all hunky-dory and good the whole time, you'd be bored and wouldn't watch it, right? I was trying to explain this to a 6-year-old, 10-year-old. Deep thoughts by dad that is not probably getting through, and they're just crying at my feet. But that's what I'm just interested in the whole karmic path and life after death. And I'm going on here, and I got somebody waiting on the phone line I'd like to get to. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach? You there,
I'm
Zach?
doing pretty good, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for calling in tonight.
Definitely. I didn't cry at the end of Stranger Things, but
don't give it away. Shh.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the 5th season. So
I didn't cry, but my kids did.
So I have 2 questions tonight, and with those questions, I'll have an experience to go along with those questions. Hey, C. Hey, Rachel. How you folks doing this evening?
Hello, Zach. How are you?
Hi.
Doing pretty good. So my first question really goes back to the phrase that was said earlier. Basically, just whenever someone's going through a meditative state, just letting your mind go and all this. And going back to one experience I had, I admit I did have an edible for this, but I had a vision to where I was seeing the inside of my mind. It was a massive library. But the Dewey Decimal System that was used for that library was all out of order, and some of the records were missing. I was surprised I even remembered what the Dewey Decimal System was.
Right.
the whole thing for me is that when I let my mind go, I always have a fear of like losing my grounding, losing some sort of control. And to do that, usually I smoke a cigar while I'm doing it. So that way I'm letting my mind roam somewhat while still remembering exactly where I'm at. My question to both of you is, what are some ways that someone can be able to safely ground themselves while they're going through a meditative state?
Well, the actual positioning of the body is very helpful. This is why they suggest strongly that you get into what they call that 7-pointed meditation posture, where your butt is on the ground, your knees are kind of folded in, your hands are on your lap, and your back is straight. This is connecting you to the grounding energies of the earth, while simultaneously allowing the crown chakra to kind of connect with the spatial realm. And the thing with Dzogchen is it's never really asking you to kind of drift away. It's really trying to prepare you and train you to remain very clear and aware, which allows for you to kind of float away. If you're not, you could easily lose yourself and float away in that and kind of lose your body and have that out of body experience. But the training itself is training you to remain in the body, be totally clear, and then begin to connect to these realms of awareness and consciousness that you don't normally connect to in the daily life.
Okay. All right. And then my second question really goes back to the whole concept of dreams. I had a dream last night. I was at a cigar lounge, and in comes in one of my former business partners. I used to own a cigar lounge. And this is one individual who I have chosen to cut off entirely out of my life. I want nothing to do with them whatsoever. And this individual was saying, sat down right next to me and just said so many negative things about me, pointing out every little fault that I had when we were running this business together. And in this dream, I went up to the owner because I was friends over with the owner. I said, look, I'm not going to be around this person at all. I'm just going to leave. And come to find out, my friend who's the owner turned around and they said, no, we're going to remove this individual, out of here. Basically, they threw him out completely. My question is, for dreams, in your opinion, do dreams kind of convey messages from the other side, or really what your inner mind is trying to tell you, why or why not?
I believe that they can be doing that. Obviously, every individual is going to be having an individual experience with their dream, but I do believe that quite often the dream is speaking to it's illustrating the subconscious and bringing it to your consciousness. And so there could be some aspects of your dream that are actually wanting to communicate to you. But it's your higher self that's communicating to yourself. And I've done a little bit of reading into dream interpretation, and I'm not an expert at all. But one thing that struck me that seemed to make the most sense to me is that some dream interpreters believe that each aspect of the dream that you're dreaming, and in particular the characters in the dream who appear in the dream, a way to analyze the dream for yourself is to actually see the dream from the perspective of you as you're dreaming it, but then move on to the next character and be that person and see their perspective on the situation, then be the next person and be that perspective on the situation. Because some people believe that every single character that enters into your dreamscape is another aspect of yourself, and it's another aspect of your higher self that is trying to make you aware of the deeper, perhaps shadow parts of yourself. So each character is actually a mirror, a reflection of parts of your psyche that needs to be resolved or unfolded or witnessed or experienced or at least acknowledged. Again, I'm not a dream interpreter. This is something that for me made the most sense when I read a number of books on the subject. I don't know how that sounds for you, if that makes sense to you at all.
It does make sense on that. I definitely wanted to ask that question because when you all were talking about dreams, it's one thought that came to my mind. But those were all the questions that I had. Thank you much, C and Rachel, for answering them. I do greatly appreciate it.
You're so
Thank you,
welcome.
Zach.
Thank you, Zach.
I always say oh, have a good night, Zach. I always say that, how I'm fascinated by consciousness. So you heard my Altered States commercial. Like I always have to play. Well, as a little kid, what little kid is fast? What little kid's fascinated with the Altered States movie? Way not for my age appropriate that I watched that movie, but I saw it on TV when I was a kid, and I was fascinated ever since. Like I wanted a isolation tank. I didn't know that they were doing drugs. I didn't understand that at that time, at that age. But I wanted the whole isolation tank and go deep dive into the consciousness. Like I am fascinated by consciousness and dream states. I mean, when I talk to people about trying to understand what consciousness is, I go, well, think about your own dreams.
Yeah.
You have other people in your dreams. They're you.
Yes.
They're reacting to you, but that's all you.
Yeah.
Call it your subconscious or your higher conscious, but in the end, it's your mind. If you look at it scientifically, it's your mind making other characters. And I've been fascinated with other aspects of consciousness, like people who've been exposed to extreme sensory deprivation by torture. Even like you got the famous case of Civil, who was like locked in a cabinet by her mother, and her brain developed multiple personalities. And you have POWs of experiences. Now, to me, the fascination comes down to what is consciousness. And if you look at consciousness when it's devoid of input from the outside world, it does break down a lot of times into its own reality, its own characters, its own personalities. What does it do? It starts to create its own reality.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's exactly what it does. Yes.
Yeah, that actually reminds me, and I'm sure you must have heard this before. It reminds me of this Japanese scientist who did a water experiment, and he had 3 glasses of water. And 1 glass of water he walked up to every day and gave loads of love and compassion and gratitude. And then the other water glass or vessel he walked up to and gave it hatred and anger and abuse. And then the 3rd glass he left alone. He completely and utterly didn't pay it any attention at all. And after a couple of months, the one water that was given all of the love and the compassion, when they analyzed it under the microscope, it had all these perfect crystalline molecular structures, and it was like every single molecular structure of the water looked like a snowflake. And then that vessel that received all of the anger, it was dark black water, and all of the perfect crystals, they were chopped up, they were broken, they were dismembered, and of course they were suffering, as it were. Visually you could see this. But actually the worst vessel of all was the one that actually received no attention whatsoever. And this vessel was rotten. It was black, it was gooey, it was rotten. It was absolutely disgusting. And so when we look at neglect, if we look at those beings, those bodies, those life forces, whether it's children or plants or animals, when they experience neglect and they experience no attention whatsoever, the manifestation of rot and call it deprivation of life actually transforms into this real nasty darkness. And that's, I think, that can happen to our minds, it can happen to our bodies, and it can happen to our, to every life form, I believe, in this planet.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at some of the worst acts done by humans, or a lot of the ones that you're like, they do something purely evil, are people who've been forgotten by society.
Exactly.
They've been demarginalized, or they've been totally ostracized. They're different. They're weird. They have very little friends. Their family even doesn't pay a lot of attention to them. When somebody becomes so isolated like that, it leads to bad things.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and actually, now we might be transgressing a little bit, but back to the healthy body, and I think this comes up in the chapter that Chris refers to in the book about eating organic foods. The whole system of our gut is based on communication. And actually what happens is that when we have a healthy diet, this let's call it an online network within our gut system, Everything's communicating, everything's online, everything's active, and every single cell within our stomach lining and our gut lining is actually communicating because it's online, because it's connected. Then what happens with pesticides and toxins, this communication network gets broken down. And what happens is cells become isolated. And an isolated cell left alone, what does it do? It starts to mutate, it starts to transform, and that's where we start to experience disease. In particular situations like cancer or diabetes, it's actually the isolation of the cell that actually causes it to transmute in negative ways.
Well, I actually love that part in the book when you do get into about being bodily aware, like starting at the feet, getting that because some people don't even think about their body parts, or pain. They want to not think about the pain, but sometimes the best way to do it is where's the source of the pain? Look deeply in it. I've done this, and it will evaporate.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you look, well, this is true for everything. When you look at the pain in your body, you try to find the source. It disappears. You take your eye off it, it comes right back. And the same with fear, same with, I'm a depressed person, I'm really depressed. And you look for that depression within you. And as you look within, you're bringing the awareness in, and the depression disappears while you're observing it. So again, awareness is the great tool that we have to overcome anything that is bothering us, that's really troubling us, not just in smaller terms, but in lifelong terms.
We haven't even totally gotten. It's been mentioned tonight, but is the idea of chakras. I think a lot of people that watch the show are probably familiar with chakras, but not everybody is. I actually discovered them early on when I started doing meditation. I'd heard about chakras, didn't really look into it. I was just looking to clear my mind, get in that light state. I'd really look into the chakra thing, but I started having these weird experiences where I'd feel like a spinning on the top of my head, or spinning here, or in my throat, and I didn't know about chakras and spinning wheels at the time. And I thought actually my head was going to explode at one point. Like I thought something was wrong, and then somebody turned me on to the idea of chakras, and this is what you're experiencing. Can you talk a little bit more about I started getting into chakra meditation, which was amazing. What are chakras, and how important is that to this meditation?
You like chakras?
Yes, I mean chakras don't really play a specific role in the Dzogchen practice. But I've recently been very much getting into sound baths and breathing as a method of healing, and there's a lot of focus on the chakras there, and especially with experiencing a sound bath, it can be a very healing process when they use the vibrations of the sound to actually realign your chakras and actually working up through the body and healing them. And you can do this also on your own, literally by focusing on, well, most people focus on the 7 chakras. There are many other chakras that you can relate to, but the standard format, as it were, speaks to 7 chakras. But you can actually spend some time with your chakra energy, and you can actually, working anti-clockwise on your body, you can actually slow that particular chakra vibration down to a standstill and halt it. And then you wind it up again, as it were, and you're actually then going clockwise, and you're actually awakening the chakra again and allowing it to sort of spin. It's almost like rebooting it, as it were. You slow it down to a stillness, and then you reboot it up. And this you could do as regularly as you want, but as of course, this you generally do when you're lying down, but with it, you're using your consciousness of your mind, focusing on that area so that it's really an alignment of awareness on that chakra. And this you can do to cleanse the energy body, because the energy body is just as important as the physical body and the spiritual body and the emotional body. So we have many bodies to take care of in the big spectrum of a human form.
I mean, we talk about it on the show all the time. Astral bodies, your conscious body. There's so many levels. We're like an onion, to unlayer of humans. We're more than this crude. I always love Yoda. I'm a Star Wars fan, so I even put on the census Jediism was my religion. But we're more than this crude matter is something I've lived by. I'm saying I just had this belief that we're beyond the flesh. There's more than this matter, this person, this identity. There's something beyond that. We were talking about subconscious, the dream. What is the higher consciousness? like your higher conscious, your higher self. We have guests talk about this all the time. What are your thoughts on what the higher self is? Is this what we're trying to rest in, is the higher self?
Well, yes. I mean, actually, if I can just tap into what you just said before, when we're so focused on the matter, actually, with quantum physics as well is now coming around to speak to this idea, is that we are actually out. What we see as matter is only 0.01% of actually who we are. So when we actually look at the quantum physics of matter, we are literally 99.9% space. And within that space, what resides? Consciousness. So awareness. We are more awareness, consciousness than we are matter, but our perception doesn't perceive it like that. And so our mind is trained as soon as we're babies and we start to learn and grow and integrate into society. We learn that we're this solid matter and this is our brother, this is our sister, and we're all these independent material beings within a material world. But actually, that's just a perception that we're taught, and it's like a code system that we're educated with. And so, of course, meditation is a way to actually break down that codification and actually break down that perception that we have to learn a new perceived reality, which is the fact that we are 99.9% space, and space is the home to consciousness. And so I know that maybe Chris could further that.
That was perfect.
Oh.
You got my mind on this, that kind of idea of quantum physics and that and spirituality. Is my dad had a book that I ended up pretty much stealing from him. It was Amit Goswami, Self-Aware Universe. He was a physicist that really thought that the way to expand and get to answer the questions in quantum physics that are yet to be answered is to look at spiritual ideas like Buddhism.
Right.
And the idea is, like what is your hand? Look deeply into your hand. What is your hand? Is it the finger? Is it the joint? Is it the bone? Is it the flesh? Is it what you go deep into like the deep looks and dives of consciousness, and that everything is just really consciousness. When you look at quantum physics, look at the split experiment. Our awareness, like the water, is determining the reality. Where that particle is going to go, or is that water getting love? Is that water getting hate? Or is that water getting neglected? Does the tree make a sound if it falls in the forest if no one's there to witness it? What is consciousness? What is reality? And how do both play? Or are they all, is it all an illusion?
Yes. Well, I believe now, and this is why I do actually have enormous hope and faith in where we're going right now, is that at least physics and quantum physics, science is actually starting to accept and become almost complete this circle that, thousands of years ago, these great ancient wisdoms, brought down from many, many different cultures, not just Dzogchen, but many similar nature-based spiritual philosophies. They knew inherently that just looking at nature and observing nature and the way it behaves, that there is this eternal being within the spaciousness of nature, and this kind of like cyclical life cycle. And I know that quantum physics now is finally coming around to actually appreciating this and understanding that as you look into nature and as you look down into molecular structures, deeper and deeper into the atoms, now into the protons, the electrons, and now into the plonks, and we look at the oscillating plonks, it's energy, and that energy. Is that energy the source of life? It quite possibly could be. Is that energy the source of consciousness? It quite possibly could be consciousness manifesting itself in the form of Planck oscillation. And so this is like we're at such a breakthrough right now that we're on this precipice that we could actually solve so many world problems by appreciating that this oscillating energy is right there in front of us, in front of the space. We're actually in and one at same with that space. We're all made of space. And if we actually accept this as a philosophy and as a reality, we can shift the whole perspective of our whole species, where we can actually then, to your point, I think you mentioned it earlier, the future is the science of consciousness, the science of the mind. This is the future science that we have at our fingertips. And We just need to remove a few establishments out of the way to be able to get there. And actually, as you said,
religious and scientific. There's dogmas in both.
Yes, that's right.
That I definitely think we need to get past. For science, is really disappointed when they're dogmatic in their beliefs in a belief system when they should be the truth seekers, is what science should be about. Religion as well,
Right.
And like I say, I think there's many doors of dogma. I've met people, people criticize Christians that are not Christians. I've met Christians I felt were very spiritually enlightened, very at calm and peace with themselves, and at one with their belief in the Lord. And I like I said, I don't judge them. I have my own. I actually do believe in Jesus Christ and have read the Bible. I actually think the New Testament is separate from the Old Testament, is when they speak of God. In the end, I believe in a higher power because of a couple of experiences I've had.
Yes, absolutely.
But I don't qualify it as God or whatever. Like I said, my best description of it is a force of life. Maybe it's because of the Star Wars fan that I am. But I do feel like it's a force that moves life in so many different ways at the molecular level, in synchronicities in our life. There's this force happening around us all the time in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
And when you start to become aware of it, especially when it comes to synchronicities in your life, things that lead you to certain paths or people or things, that there is this force that moves us along.
Absolutely. And to your point, you mentioned it before, this communication, this web. I mean, we have this natural energy force, which is a web. And this is where these, as the web is creating and constantly evolving, this is where these little points of communication happen. And this is why simultaneously two people can get the same idea, or simultaneously they're thinking about each other. This is perhaps the root of telepathy. This is definitely the root of how we can actually communicate across different realms, from whether it's death state to life state. I mean, I know that Chris was saying that a lot of the mind transmissions could even be transmitted from dead Tibetan master to a living Tibetan student. And it can be, these mind transmissions can be communicated through realms. And I think once we begin to open up our minds to this and our perception starts to shift, and we can embrace so much more in the human level of consciousness than we've ever been able to embrace before. So it's really exciting.
Well, I've had guests on here that are channelers or people who are communicating with something beyond themselves, something beyond this world, alien, channeling that. And I believe in their experiences. What's your thought, of, people that are touching into these higher realms? I mean, they might not be doing Dzogchen meditation, but they are communicating with something. It's changing their lives, or, it's giving them a purpose. What do you believe people can channel other entities from other realms or dimensions or planets or?
Definitely. I mean, we all come onto this planet with all these different abilities, and we're all at different levels of being able to perceive. And so, absolutely, people are channeling they're receiving what's there. We can't see it because we have a frequency range that doesn't allow us to see it, but some people just have this ability, and so of course. It's all happening, and the people who are denying it are really shutting themselves down to the opportunity to grow and to really develop and to become something so much larger than they are in this tiny little shell of a body that we're in.
I think we've talked about on the show, some of the great inventors of the world were channeling something like Tesla and Edison, and but if you look at the modern industrial revolution, the invention of the phone or the phonograph, there was multiple people inventing the same thing at the same time.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Is that the collective unconscious unveiling technology to everybody at that time? We're ready for this. This is technology. Are we downloading something at certain times, like the level of knowledge we can tap into increases as we grow as a consciousness?
I believe so. I mean, I believe that as we give birth to the new generations, we're giving birth to more consciously awake people. And so as years go by, consciousness is evolving because the nature of the world evolves. The frequency of the earth begins to increase. The universe itself is expanding exponentially as we speak. everything expands. Like that's the nature of this universe, this cosmic universe, like it's expansion. And then of course we get moments of contraction and then expansion again. So of course this sort of ebb and flow and this pulsating growth. But ultimately we are all, every single living being is moving towards an evolving, not a devolving existence.
Well,
We hope.
There's also
Yeah. You see the doubt here in my face a little bit with that. But.
But there's also the theory that we are hurtling through a universe, and we are moving through different parts of the universe, and it could be that the universe stores information in different ways and in different areas. And as we move through a part of a universe, that suddenly people are receiving information that hadn't been experienced or even received in the entire course of humanity. But now we're in the right place geographically out there. And again, we move forward and we continue to move forward and receive new information. So there's all kinds of possibilities going on there. So this idea of entanglement, where one proton is doing the exact same thing as another proton and mirroring each other, but they're billions of miles apart. There's so much going on that intellectually we just can't get our grasp of.
Well, it makes sense for astrology, and people would say planets and all this stuff affects everybody at certain times. And I know people astrology, I don't believe in it. I don't know, but there's it's been around for thousands of years. This belief that we are affected by where our position in the space-time continuum, and how stars and alignments affect us. I like the description you say we're hurtling through space or whatever. I mean, even time itself isn't a standard set in space.
No.
Right.
I mean, in fact, in space, there is no time.
Right. I mean, I always wondered as a kid, the stars I'm looking at, they tell you that star could take 8 million years, that light to reach us. So I'm looking at it 8 million years ago, what is time then? And if it flows differently, by gravity, and I would, that's the fascination. You talk about space and time, but when you get into quantum physics, you get into this, it's space-time. It's inseparable.
It's one word,
Right, it's space-time, exactly. Well, actually, that's interesting because the practice of Dzogchen actually speaks about the fourth time. When you enter into the state of the fourth time, there's no past, no present, no future. You actually enter into this fourth time. And really, that's what quantum physics is actually pointing to, where you can actually simultaneously present in two different or multiple moments within the universe. And I'm referring to it as a moment, but it's a space-time that can simultaneously happen at the same time because there literally is no concept of time. And it's fascinating. And really that speaks to the same idea of this fourth time, where you're beyond past, present, future, and things can appear and disappear, and they arise and they dissolve. And this is really the same philosophy as much of the great Eastern wisdoms when it comes to consciousness.
Well, you look at near-death experiences, they describe a state a lot of times of no time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or time dilation even. Like I know one near-death experience, he felt he was living a whole life for 7 years when he was only dead for minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
To come back, like time is perception. I mean, me and my wife used to play this game. And like you two, I have a beautiful, great marriage, and 19 years are going to be going on here soon, and 26. We share a lot of the same perspectives and interests. We're both paranormal investigators, but we do things like this is why I love my wife. We would do a road trip, and we'd cover up the clock and see if we could get to a destination quicker than the map told us we would get to. This is before GPS. So it would be great. We tried it recently with GPS, but we actually would get further, spend less gas by doing this. So are we bending time?
Well,
yes, quite possibly.
It's a great concept. I love it.
We have to try that next time.
We're always on the road.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Who's ever been out there who's been in like a car crash or some really catastrophic moment, time disappears. You recognize that there is no time whatsoever taking place, and that you're an awareness being at its highest moment right there. It's actually an amazing moment. Now, the worst part is you do have to suffer through that trauma. But the moment you're going through the trauma is a moment where time stops.
Mm.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been there and been in a car crash and felt that the time slow down.
Yeah.
You know, that's literally what it's like. And I've always been fascinated by time. You know, we're in this linear perspective of, you know, past, present, future. You know, oh, I'm in the present. Nope, it's gone. You know, like trying to hold on to like the present moment was one of the most difficult ideas for me. You know, in meditation. Like,
Yes.
I'm in the present. No, I'm not. It's like the cat catching his tail, you know. Time's fascinating to me. You know, like, what is the present? What is the past? What is the future? Does the future affect the past? We've talked about the Mandela effect on this show. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, where people swear the past has been changed. They remember things differently.
Oh, right. Yes.
You know, is time an illusion?
Well, it is, and it's interesting because one of the great Tibetan masters, Sonyi Rinpoche, in his book, which is Carefree Dignity, he actually says, you know, he walks you through this chapter, and he's preparing you to enter into this state of presence, and actually, you know, just walking you step by step. And then he says, you know, when you're there, when you're in the present moment, then let go of the present. And when I read this, I was just like, wow, now I get it. Because, you know, a lot of meditation speaks about, you know, be present, be in the present moment, be in the present moment. That's also a construct. That's
right.
Also, and like you said, you can't grasp onto it because the moment you grasp onto it, it's gone. And so you have to literally let go of that too. And this is where you start to really shift your perspective and just enjoy this open spaciousness that's everywhere.
We got another phone call I want to get to here. We got Dan on the line. How you doing tonight, Dan?
Hello there, Jason and Sivan and Rachel.
Hello.
Hi.
And Jamie. Hi. Yeah, I was a little apprehensive about calling in, but I don't know what it is about Jason's show sometimes. But this has piqued my curiosity. The cover of your book, the symbol on the front. Is there any way you can describe that for me? I tried to Google it and stuff. I just couldn't.
Actually, I was fascinated by the cover of the book. I assume it's Tibetan Sanskrit or something along that lines, or
that is from that's from an old mandala, I think. That's in a museum could be in Chicago, I think.
I wonder because I would have seen it.
Yeah, it's it's on the book. You have the book there, I think. It's on the book somewhere, but it's an old just a cloth, and it's the back side actually of an amazing. The front side of this cloth, this tanka or mandala, is all of the Haruka-deities, all the fierce, wrathful deities of the Tibetan pantheon. And so, but on the backside was this cloth, and that backside is the artist's kind of description of what the whole front side is all about, and nobody ever sees that. It's covered up by a frame. And they have to unmount the whole canvas and take a picture of that backside. So I thought that was perfect for me as a Western practitioner, a writer, to kind of as a representative symbol of kind of what I'm doing is describing, you know, what is an amazing creation of the human consciousness is this tradition of Dzogchen. And here I am just trying to just type up a little something about it. So that for me, that was kind of an important symbol to use on the cover.
Yeah, I was curious because it sounds weird, but I've kind of seen that lately, I guess you could say.
If you get the book, you'll see exactly where I got it from. I can't remember offhand what it is, but I give full credit to it at the beginning of the book.
I was trying to remember what I read on that. I was looking for it. I was looking for where you had it in the book.
It's in the first couple pages. It's like right at the top.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. I'll have to look for it. I'm interested too because actually, Dan, when I first got this in the mail and I got this book, I was really interested in that. Like something called to me from the cover of your book.
Well, when it came up on the screen, man, I was like, "What?" You know, I was like, "Wait," had one of them, "Wait a minute," you know, a "wait a minute" moment. You know what I mean?
Wait a minute.
The first time I saw it, it was a black and white image, and even then, in black and white, it was like, wow, that thing's it's
Striking.
speaking something to me.
But you know, I have in my living room, I have Dalai Lama, or not Dalai Lama, I have Salvador Dali's Last Supper painting on one end of the room, and I have the Tibetan Buddhist, what is it called? It's a painting of Buddha and all these different lotus petals. You know, spiritually, it's my way of showing my two different sides. You know, like my interests. You know, but Tibetan, anything from Tibet. I mean, me and my wife both just have this deep interest in the like even our like decorating and design of like a lot of these things call to me. I don't know what it is, and I know they spent a lot of time with like making these kind of mandalas and these things to focus on. So it is really interesting. Now, Dan, I don't know if you have.
Well, when I've seen it,
no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say when I've seen it, it didn't have the circle. You know, those circle around the outside is just the lines. I guess you could say.
Did you have any other questions, Dan? I know you're going. Dan here is my friend, and I know you're having some spiritual awakenings lately.
Well,
do you have any questions for them on a guidance? I would think you could use.
Yeah, and I've been getting into meditation. You know, it took me because I had an incident that I got PTSD and anxiety from. So. After a year and a half of that, I started to try to do it. I looked on YouTube to try, different methods of getting into that state. And they never quite worked for me. But what Jamie said earlier about having just the noise, the thoughts, and maybe some music in the background, your mind will eventually just kind of fade out of that, at least for me.
Yeah.
Just all the thoughts and the noise.
The thoughts.
And the first couple times it worked really well. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
But yeah, the first few times that I, actually got it to work, which, was pretty indescribable experiences, but they were long, and I still have never been able to get to that level again. But and what Jason was saying earlier about realizing where you are and kind of snapping out of it, I still have that problem because what it feels like to me is that my eyes are open, but I know they're closed, and sometimes when I realize that's what's happening, I'll open them, but it feels like the other one's shut. As soon as I open those, it's kind of a weird thing. It's like, poop, you're gone, you're done.
You're talking about, we were talking about this, me and Dan. It's like you meditate. I've had this experience, and your eyes are closed. They're closed. I can feel them totally closed, but I can see them.
Perfectly closed, as tight as sometimes I even close them as tight as I can.
Or I even
and you
see
can
myself.
See through them. Yes.
Well,
you can see through them. I see environment or the room and light. It's not necessary in full color, but you can see it. It's there.
Well, this is where
it's kind of weird.
For a fact that awareness is beyond the body. That awareness is not bound by the body by its own nature. I mean, it is bound by the body in this life because we're not trained and we haven't learned the skills to let that awareness move as freely as it wants to be. And so meditation is great to help you learn how to close your eyes and still be able to see. And this does happen regularly.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you for calling in, bud.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you, Sivan and Rachel. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
evening.
All right.
Have a good night, Dan. I told him, he's like, "Who's your guest on?" I said, "We're going to enter deep into the mind, Dan. You need to listen," because he's somebody going through his own kind of spiritual journey right now, dealing with this. We became friends online in a game we play, and And it kind of brings me to the next thing before we get to commercial break. Is they talk about like me and him play this game, whatever, and we get in a zone. Athletes get in a zone, and sometimes when you're in that zone, that's also another time when time is almost meaningless.
Yes.
You're making actions without thinking. You're doing things, and time slows down when you're doing something like that. Is that part of that higher consciousness when you get into that kind of zone where you're doing some kind of activity?
I think it
Definitely believe so, yes. And I think that, Chris and I are also, we're creative individuals. We have ways of expressing ourselves through art, different forms. And you can quite easily get into that zone when you're creating and you're perhaps creating something with your hands or music or words, writing, and that flow that just it's coming from you, and it's almost like you become a conduit to that higher consciousness, and it's almost like this transmission from consciousness through you to the vessel, and then it's expressing itself out through your skill, whatever that skill is. So we believe that art itself can very much become a form of meditation.
I 100% agree. I used to be a musician and play in bands and write songs. I don't do that anymore, but I used to feel like I'd get into a zone, hours would go by, but I thought it was only minutes writing a song. Like, I wrote that really quick. Oh no, it's 5 hours later. I'm saying, like, and it's a stream of consciousness. There's no thought to it. It just comes out of me. I used to do that when I would paint. I would do that when I would write stories. I felt like, oh wow, I've been writing this for an hour. So no, it's 5 hours later. Time itself and the perception of time is thrown out the window when you're in that zone.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys want to hang on or not, or if we want to end the show here. It's up to you guys. We have one last commercial break and a half an hour left.
I could do another half hour.
I think we can do it.
I might be slowing down a little bit, but give me some
coffee stimulants here.
Oh yeah.
My little yerba mate.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to go to our last commercial break and keep the phone lines open. When we come back, wait till we come back from commercial break. If you're going to call in, guys, I always put it offline when we're on commercial break. But when we come back, call in, join the conversation. At Zach and Dan, awesome calls there. But we're going to go to commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about Dzogchen meditation, the book Entering the Mind by Sivan Hassett and his wife, Rachel Reid Wilkie, and their experiences and knowledge, wisdom being shared here live on Paranormal Soup, where the weird happens live every Sunday night. We'll be back.
Intercepted transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. I will hear it.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up. Do, re, be gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guests have been Sivan Hassett and Rachel Reid Wilkie. Sivan has written a great book I highly recommend, Entering the Mind. We're talking about Dzogchen meditation or Tibetan meditation. What is awareness? What is your awareness? Are you consciously aware? What is consciousness? All these deep thoughts. That's what I'm trying to get you guys to do. Look inward. I am into the weird, the unusual, UFOs, Bigfoot, the whole deal. But like I said, the biggest mystery is what is consciousness? What is the soul? Who are we deep down? These are the like I said, the undiscovered country to me. The deepest part of what we could look into is who we are deep down, our innate self. That's what we're getting into tonight. Join the deep thoughts and the deep conversation. You can call in the show. Let me get that phone line open for you guys. Call in. The numbers are open. Let's go ahead and get back to our guests. Thank you, Rachel and C, for staying with us for another half hour of the show. We'll see if we get any more phone calls, but I do want to get into, you talk about in the book, that this is kind of, some of this would be advanced practice for people, that there's, that they could start out with some of the other meditations, transcendental meditation and all, or mantras, or things to kind of get the mind practiced and ready to move into this. I think for a lot of people I have in my audience, they've experimented with meditation, or maybe they're regular meditators and all that. But what's the general way somebody should, if they're brand new to this, get started? That they get your book, where should they really begin?
There is a chapter in the book where I speak to this practice called shamatha practice. And shamatha practice is just a very direct way of developing the skill of quieting the mind. Meaning, like you would practice on focusing in on a rock, for instance. Just lay your attention on a rock and just hold it there. It could be your breath. The breath is great as well. There's just a number of ways where within a very short period of time, you can stabilize the mind so it isn't like you call it the monkey mind that's just pulling us in every direction. You begin to learn to work with this mind. And then from there, you move on to the higher practice of what is called Dzogchen, which is you're kind of learning to rest within the quieted mind. And it's this resting that really gives us the wisdom, all the deep knowledge that we need, and the awareness that we need to move into a more elevated way of being in this world, but also preparing us for ultimately our own deaths, where we move into the death state without the body. And this, when, if you look at your mind right now, if it's the mind is just racing in every direction, then when you lose the body, the mind is the reality of those thoughts that we recognize, they're happening in my head. They become full-blown realities in the death state. They become like dream. You're experiencing everything. So stabilizing through these great practices, what they call shamatha. There's other, Zen has its own way of quieting the mind. I mean, every great meditation lineage has their great ways of quieting the mind. Any way you could do that is perfect. And this is the beginning point for where then you lift off into the next level of meditation of Dzogchen.
See, one of my fascinations with consciousness and the afterlife, too, combined, is I've always had this thought in my head, and I thought about it more after I remember the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams?
Yeah.
In the sense that he's painting his own afterlife. Like he's literally a painting into the afterlife, but that he's creating his own afterlife. But in the physical body, he's here, he has his life, and he has all the drama and stuff, but when he goes on the other side, he creates it. And I've always wondered if the body and this physical existence is a training method for our soul, because in the afterlife, our soul can go crazy in a sense. It can go and create anything, any emotional, whatever. While we're here, it's a filter to keep those things. I can't manifest the monster in the closet. I mostly can't, right? But I can't, make something appear in front of me or whatever. But in the other reality, and maybe the afterlife or Bardo or anything that's not this physical 3D matter, our souls are at its own, basically, we could be our own torturers. We could be our own saviors. We basically create a reality, and it can be a tremendous thing if we can't figure out a way to control our own mind or thoughts, I guess.
Yes.
That's so true.
When you go into your dream state, you just go to sleep at night, and, you lay in bed, and, you have all these characters that enter. Dan spoke to that earlier, or Zach spoke to it earlier. The guy that Zach saw wasn't in his dream. The real person wasn't there. That was Zach's imagination, his awareness creating this individual. And these individuals have, they can have a big impact on us. They can really scare us. They can threaten us. They can hurt us in dream. And you wake up and you realize, that was just a dream. But when you move into the death state, at the body, it becomes tenfold what you experience in the dream. And if you're not training in this life to stabilize in your own mind, then your own mind is going to create some scary situations for you. And if you're an angry person in this life, you're going to be up against a lot of anger in that afterlife. If you're filled with love in this life, then you're going to be blessed with a presence of a lot of love. But, you know, these things are always changing. So, you know, you can't just say, oh, I'm a loving person and I'm going to experience love and death. Everything changes. So you have to stabilize. That's the critical thing.
So the Four Noble Truths, you know,
Yeah.
everything's in constant change. Yeah, I mean, it was just things that brought me to Buddhism that I loved.
Yeah.
You know, just the ultimate just look at reality and what it is and what you can see. You know, everything's in constant change and motion.
And accept change as well, like accepting that impermanence, that change that constantly unfolds in front of us. That is where, to be able to accept that constant change, you have to drop your judgments. You have to drop your you know, your perception of what you think is right or wrong. You have to drop your perception of control. And so, you know, the training of meditation actually allows you over time in this life to train yourself for these moments so that you accept literally everything that unfolds, so that you're not attached to the outcome.
Right. Well, it's like, you know, like I said, I love what dreams may come is the, you know, the idea, you know, in religion you have, or people with near-death experiences, they're all over the place. You know, there's a lot of similarities and commonalities, but there's people that have, you know, heavenly, see the people that they love passed on, and there's people that see hell. Yeah. And this goes thousands of years of mankind in history, and people have had these experiences. Yeah. And what I loved about What Dreams May Come and this idea that we do create our own afterlife, our own reality, is like his wife in the movie commits suicide. And they're like, well, she's in hell. But not really. She's in her own created hell. She is punishing herself. And and the beauty of that movie is he pulls her out of it. I love the original Eastern ending to that movie too was great, and they had to change it for the West, which is stupid, where they go and are reborn, and they live out the karmic cycle. They changed the ending of the movie for the West.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have it on DVD. They have two different endings at the end, and there's the original I saw in the theater, and I'm like, yeah, that ending's great, you know. But and I saw the Eastern version. I'm like, this ending's way better.
Yeah,
makes a lot more sense.
Of course,
totally. Yeah. Well, you know, what you just said there just reminds me of our ayahuasca trip that, you know, we did travel down to Peru and have an ayahuasca experience. And it was absolutely beautiful because first of all, you're having a complete out of body experience so you're literally not attached to your body whatsoever.
Right.
But, you know, we obviously had our own individual experiences because we have our own individual perception and we have our own individual consciousness, but we both in different ways experience the death process, and we experience death and rebirth. And, you know, with that came incredible amounts of information and ancient wisdoms and, you know, the wisdom of ayahuasca itself as a plant medicine. Many different plant medicines can offer you these kind of experiences, mushrooms or, you know, psychedelics, many different. And I think it's the beauty of those experiences, and it's not for everyone. I'm just saying that, you know, we had this experience and it was beautiful in our experience simply because it allowed us another way of experiencing this complete and utter letting go and letting things unfold and letting things arise in front of us. But we at the time were coming from a very beautiful space. We were peaceful. We were taken care of by a shaman. We didn't have any haunting traumas that were following us in our lives at that time. And so we both had, you know, challenging experiences, but they brought us a lot of knowledge and a lot of beauty.
You did it in a spiritual way. Last time I ever experimented with anything, I didn't do it in a spiritual way, and ended up, like I said, on a bathroom floor with my wife rubbing my back and me going, why did I do this? You know, I don't recommend doing it my way. I'd recommend doing it your way. I would love, if I were to ever do it, it'd have to be that way. Yeah. It'd have to be in a spiritual journey.
Absolutely. And that ties back into each individual creates their hell or their heaven.
Yeah, and I created my hell in that instant.
Right. There you go. Unfortunately. Yeah. But you know, there are very many different ways to experience all realms, like this realm, the next realm, the death realm, the dream realm, and the psychedelic realm. These are all different states of consciousness that we can access and we can experience, but they're all going to be reflective of our perception that we invest in that experience. And so to your point again, if we are able to shift our perspective, we can experience the manifestation of that shifted perspective. And so if it's about training the mind to actually not only be positive and be loving and kind, but also like letting all of these attachments go, we can actually experience in many different realms a state of joy as opposed to a state of hell.
I think one of the experiences I had, I saw somebody comment that God is real. I'm like, I'm with you, brother. I am, because, but what you perceive as God might be differently than what I perceive as God. I see God, my perception of God is this force that moves the universe, life, not all-seeing, judgmental eye of any kind. Because of my experience I had when I was 17 to 18, I basically had something, some Christians would describe it as demonic. I don't give it a description, quantifier, except for a shadow person, because that's what it appeared to me physically, not in a dream or anything. I'd physically see this thing. Tortured me. It brought me to the brink psychologically. It knew every little deep secret of me. Maybe it is my shadow self. I've thought about this for years. I wrote it all out in Mike Rickseker's Paranormal Encounters book. I've thought about it deeply. Might be alien connections to it. I don't know. But it was a very paranormal, crazy experience. I was levitated up off my bed and thrown down. This is this is why I do this show, so people feel like they're alone in these situations. That people would say they're crazy. They're not. I'm telling them now, you're not. There are things that can affect you. There's things we don't understand. And I was saved in the moment I did call out to God. In that moment, and I couldn't speak, but I was literally floating up to my ceiling for the third time as this thing was about ready to throw me down again. And I thought as loudly in my head as I could think, this inner voice to say, God, please help me. I'm sorry, God, help me. And this bright flashlight happened, and this thing was literally kicked out of my room. And I felt this feeling, and there's only twice, that time and another time, I'll tell you in a second. I felt this immense feeling of compassionate love. Like I can't describe it besides except for like the moment you see your child born, which I'll get to in a second. It's like, but it's a love for you, and it's just a knowing that you are never alone.
I'm curious, did you also feel love and compassion for this alien demonic beast that was throwing you around? Was he included in that sense of compassion and love?
In a sense, yeah. I don't hate it. At the time, I hated it, but it was all gone. I was disattached from that feeling anymore. All I could feel was just immense love that you are not alone. And this is not, whatever this is will never harm you again.
And that feeling is utterly real. That compassion and love you feel is our natural state. That is our state. That is at our essence. And this is what we're aiming for in meditation practice. Whatever practice, I think this is why we all set out to meditate, because we're trying to align with that higher state of compassion and joy and love. And we're trying to alleviate the suffering that we experience. Every one of us on this planet has experienced some suffering. And this compassion that you felt and this utter joy is real. It is the center of our very selves.
I couldn't hate anything at that moment of feeling. There's no way I could hate anything. All I felt is just love. There's nowhere in my room, in my heart at that moment to feel any negative hate at all. Not towards the thing that was attacking me. It really almost drove me to the brink. The other time I felt that feeling was right before I was getting ready to move out. I know the audience has heard these stories over time, but these are the things that have changed my life. These are the spiritual ultimate moments in my life. I've had a lot of weird stuff. I could go on all night about all the weird stuff, but these moments I talk about a lot on my show, and I've mentioned a lot of times, is reason because these are moments that changed me. Or I felt like insights into the universe. I was sitting on my parents' couch in the middle of the day, thinking about, am I doing the right thing, marrying my wife? Not that anything again, it wasn't about her. It was about, am I going to live up to her? And can I do this? I don't want to ever make her feel or screw her over or be wrong to her. Am I in the right? Am I doing right by her? All these thoughts, anxiety, and all that. And out of nowhere, that feeling I had that I had when I was saved before came to me. Just a sudden whole body got warm, that immense feeling of love and compassion, all that anxiety, all that stuff washed away. I was not meditating. I was just sitting there freaking out, and it was gone. And I see walking through my living room, this translucent 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy coming through my living room. and he's translucent, but I can see his face and details. I'm not scared. I'm literally, there's no way I could be scared again, and there's no feeling that can enter me but this immense compassion and love that I'm like, welcome, old friend, kind of like this. I know what this is a higher source. I'm not afraid. He smiles at me. This little boy smiles at me, and I just know I know him. And then he evaporates. Fast forward many years later, and I already had my first son, Dean. Love him to death. But my second child was a surprise too. Liam, he's born. They take him out, and my wife's there, and they put him next to her head. And I have this picture. I actually took a picture of this moment. And he smiles at me. And at that moment, I knew right then, the translucent boy I saw in my living room is that boy smiling at me right now, that little baby smiling at me.
Awesome.
And the mysteries of the universe, just a billion questions more now. And my son, Liam, has actually told my wife he chose us.
Yeah.
Yes. He came to you in that moment and said, yes, please, be with your wife, because I'm going to choose you in the future, and I'm going to be part of your family, and I want to be part of this beautiful love that you're experiencing. I believe that. Yes.
What's interesting is when you're talking about your experience, that way, and the warmth and the love. When I had my second NDE, I was very, very angry at the person that had done it. It was Mother's Day. I was thinking about my mom, and all these, things are going through my head. And as I was feeling myself slipping away, I just got this really warm feeling over me. And it was like this light that just enveloped me and surrounded me. And I felt completely safe. I felt like the most love I could ever feel. It was just so comforting that I wanted to go away with it. And I wasn't angry at the guy, that did it. I was like ready to accept it. But I fought back, because I didn't want my mom, to wake up on Mother's Day like that. But that's what it reminds me of when you're talking about that feeling of just immense love.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the universe is a loving entity. And, we're, as human beings, we're physical matter within a universe that's all space, but awareness. And in this body, we suffer. But the universe, when we're released into this, or we're about to be released into the universe, we're comforted with love and the natural energies of the universe. So I think we're surrounded in this state by an ocean of love and an ocean of just peace. And we bring a lot of complicating energies to that as physical beings. And, so our job, in Dzogchen, they speak to this idea of the nature of mind. And nature is critical to this element, because nature itself is what we're trying to align with ultimately. So, yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to look at what your experience, and that's just one idea on it.
Well, that's what gets me about it, is like, imagine being able to live in that state always.
Yes. And that's enlightenment.
That's it. That
right.
Is.
Yes, that's enlightenment.
You look at the Dalai Lama, and you know for a fact that he's
there.
He's there. And there are certain individuals that are there. You know it when you meet them, that you just feel it. And we're all trying to get there, and we're doing it through the best possible ways we can try to do it, and through our only means necessary, which is meditation. You can't do it through any other way. You have to learn to meditate and go within. Going within is where you get all the answers.
And me and my mom would try to go to some Buddhist temples and some different meditations, and I've met some. I felt like, okay, they seem wise, but I met one at a Zen Buddhist temple. He radiated it.
Yes.
He really did radiate like this feeling that almost like I could almost taste that feeling again from him. So some people radiate this from their being.
It comes from their eyes and everything.
They literally become a body of light. And, that is their essence, is light.
And what I like I mentioned before, is people I believe that are Christian can always live Thich Nhat Hanh, because he always said there's many doors of the Dharma. Go to your roots. He would tell people, go to your roots. If you're Christian, go look back at your roots of your Christian religion. You can practice this, but you should go back and look at your roots, because there's things in the New Testament and Jesus that I really feel are along these lines. You know, it's been perverted. I believe it's been perverted historically in the New Testament and that, but I think they're down in the kernel and the essence of what he's trying to get across to his apostles is this message of love and compassion. He sat down with the dredge of society, with prostitutes and thieves, and he showed you non-judgment. He showed you through his actions and his parables a lot of these same messages. And that's why I believe, like, I've met Christian people that are devout Christian, but they're non-judgmental. They would take anybody in. They live by the word of Jesus. And I believe there's doors of the Dharma. And in their prayer, when they go in this state of prayer, they feel the essence of God, as they describe it, is they're going into the same compassionate love too.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think most religions, at the heart of the religion is love and compassion. And then how it's evolved and how it's turned into an institution. And then, of course, as you said, in some cases it gets corrupted here and there. But the heart of most religions is the knowledge and the inherent knowing of this essence, this true essence, which is within each and every one of us, which is this love and compassion. I mean, I believe the phrase is, the kingdom of heaven is within. And that literally means that we all have that essence within us, and we can transgress or transcend, rather, this sort of material world to actually reach this heaven within. And of course, these are just words to describe really the same thing, that we actually, we all have the capacity to touch that space of the nature of mind within us, which is blissful, and it brings about joy, because again, like you said, it's the releasing of judgment. It's no judgment on yourself, no judgment of others, and we all have the capacity to experience that in this life form.
I would like to see more people become interested in Dzogchen, or anything that makes them look deeply with themselves and try to become more compassionate. I think this world could be changed by the merest movement of people deciding to be more compassionate.
Yes.
Deciding to be more non-judgmental. This last few years, when you saw my face earlier when you're talking about society proof, I don't feel that way, though. So my hope is, you guys get out there more with this book. You get the word out there more, or people just get more interested in this. I do see there is, like I said, it's a dualistic thing going on. I see this awakening in people. I do see more acceptance in the paranormal, the supernatural realm, or ideas that reality isn't what we think it is. I mean, heck, the UFO thing discussion's now prominent. There's a lot of aspects I see awakening in people, but I also see us falling asleep at the wheel.
Right.
Big time. I mean, you can look at it with the agriculture corporations, pharmaceuticals. We are in a real bad situation right now.
Yes. Well, we were talking about that today, and we both kind of align ourselves with the idea that somewhere this fragmentation of our society and us as a species is almost creating two different species. It's almost like you've got the evolving consciousness that we're speaking to, where there's a great movement towards actively igniting consciousness and evolving consciousness. And then there is, as everything, there's the light and the dark side. And so you've got this pull in the opposite direction, which is almost devolving, for want of a better word, where people are actually becoming more materialistic and more based in these sort of troubled states. And so, yes, like a bit like Star Wars, there's always going to be the pull of the forces,
the dark side and the light side. That's why
and the light side.
That's why I said Jediism is my thing. I do reference the Star Wars and Yoda and the Force a lot to my children. I'm trying to explain stuff like spiritually to them, because that relates to them. They love Star Wars and all that.
And it's based on ancient knowledge, like the ancient philosophies have known that there's always light and dark, and they have to coexist. But what we have to remember as as having an individual consciousness is that we have choice. We can choose. And the more that we speak about it, the more that we share this, and the more that we have these fantastic conversations like today, we offer the opportunity for somebody to stop and think and make a choice. And I think that's the beauty of being a human being, is that we can choose.
Well, I've lived by the mantra of Thich Nhat Hanh of peace is every step. If you can't control what other people are going to do, but if you want peace, you have to take your steps to make peace.
True. Yes. Yes.
That's the only thing I can tell my kids, and I try to remind myself as a daily mantra. You know, when I get angry at somebody or whatever, it's like, well, you can't control what they do. You can only control what you do.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You're a good dad.
I don't know. I try to be. Well, I want to thank you guys so much. I'm really honored to have you guys on the show to talk about this.
It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you.
You guys, you know, I know this is weird, but this is the place for weird. Is that when I first I got the bio of you guys and the picture, I saw the picture of you two, and I'm like, I know these people.
Oh,
like
good.
I had to go back. I'm like, I haven't had them on the show before, right? No, but I like know you. It's a weird feeling I only get once in a while. But I have that feeling about you. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe I caught you on something else before. But when the publicist sent me the information, I first saw the picture of both of you. I'm like, I know these people.
I think
and your even your accent.
I think it's something like that spirit you saw when you were trying to figure out if you wanted to marry your wife or not, and then it showed up as your son at some point later. Maybe that's us, and somehow we're reconnecting now after some long period of not, in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So
I believe in that. I totally believe in that. Well, thank you guys for connecting tonight. It was, like I said, a really true honor. Website really quick for people to check out. I know you have Riot Material magazine. What's the website for that?
Riotmaterial.com.
Okay, riotmaterial.com. You guys, I was checking out. You got like artists on there and music, and it seems really interesting. So definitely tell people to check that out. And then the book Entering the Mind. Here, guys, I say. Entering the Mind. Definitely check out this book. Do you have any other? What's your future project coming up?
We're kind
a bit floating right now.
We're trying to figure that out. Actually, do you have any ideas?
Through space.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you let me know if you got a future project. You want to come back on the show anytime, guys. I'd love to have you on. You were excellent.
And Jamie, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Jamie, your energy's great as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. That is it for the show. We are going to be, I don't know if we're going to be back next week. I had a guest cancel. I'm not sure. I got some other stuff going on right now. So we'll see. Maybe open lines next week. Maybe live ITC Spirit Box communication. I don't know. Weird happens live here on the Paranormal. If we're back next Sunday, you know it'll be weird. You'll know it'll be paranormal. Same bad time, same bad channel. I'll let you guys know. Check out our Facebook page. Make sure you follow and subscribe to get all that information. Follow us on YouTube, too. Make sure you subscribe on there. I put notifications for the show on there as well. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, Sivan. Thank you, Rachel. You guys were excellent. I love you both. And thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Rob. It was on earlier. And thank you to everybody in the chat room. You're all awesome. Thank you to everybody who shares out the show. Thank you to my Patreons. Thank you. Don't forget, you can always donate $2 a month on there, $5 a month, or just make a donation to help support the show. And you can always donate on Super Chat on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Probably see you next Sunday.